All right, hey, we're on. Let's do a check, making sure you hear my audio. Brian will join us shortly, but I wanted to get things rolling. He's going to get in about 15 minutes, but I wanted to go over the specs, answer some questions, and then we could start comparing and everything. So let's double check. Welcome, Stop the FOMO. And today we're going to take a look at the Hisense U7K. So we'll compare it to last year's Editor's Choice Hisense U8H. And of course, this year's so far to me, the best mini LED TV is the TCL QM8. So quick review of the tech specs. So on my, right here, on my right is the tech specs for the U7K, but before we jump in, I want to make sure video's good, audio's good, and how's everyone doing? So right now I'm going solo for a bit, so hope everyone's doing okay. FOMO's beard is as elusive as the smile. Oh, you're crazy. All right, so let me play around. I gotta make sure I have my comments. Testing, all right, let me position it so that it's easy to read. Okay, well, thank you, John, for that. Hey, DP Calibrations. Hello, Lisa. Hello, John and Mr. Hooper. Hello, Robin, Michael Beckerman, Scott, AM Nation, Robin, Isaac, Ata, and Scott, and Alan. Classy's here. Hey, Leo. Welcome, everyone. Alexander Fleener, a lot of regulars. Today, this is going to be really cool. Hey, Rody, and CJ and Vishnu. A lot of great questions. We're going to try to get to all of it. So the Hisense U7K, it is technically the least expensive mini LED you're going to be able to buy in 2023. There is no other TV that is 65 inches, and I'm hearing that the actual street prices, are you guys ready? $850 for the 65 inch. So the MSRP shows that it's just above 1,000. Once it hits real street pricing in about maybe 1, 2, or 3 weeks, you're going to see it under 900, around 850. Now, is that impressive? The question is, sure, it's inexpensive. Well, relatively speaking, it's inexpensive. How does it perform, right? Well, for sure, there are no other TVs in 2023 65-inch size that's under $900 off the bat like this. So you're going to get the price advantage. But how's the processing? A lot of you are saying, wait, this is Hisense. Processing must be terrible. So to be fair to all the TV makers, every year they all get better. Sony has had the lead for a while now, but LG has caught up, Samsung's catching up a lot closer, and for sure both TCL and Hisense are catching up. So today you're going to see Hisense, the U7K against the U8H and against the TCL QM8. You guys can tell me, has processing caught up to the flagship of their own brands? And then at some point we'll compare it to OLED, right? Hopefully, if we have time, but for sure in the future. But again, it's $850. You're not really cross-shopping the U7K with an OLED, because even the least expensive OLED with some HDR pop is over $1,000. So that's something to think about. And so let's just go over the tech specs real quick. 144 Hertz VRR panel. Obviously, it's on paper. How well it works is another matter, but I know that Hisense has told me the U7K processor and the U8K both have been upgraded. Bandwidth is much better. They should be able to do full 4K 120 with VRR. How 144 Hertz works with PC gaming is a whole other matter. And excuse me, and of course it has quantum dots, right? The mini LED backlight, it has about, even though the local array dimming says 500 zones, that's for the 85-inch. On the 65-inch, it's about 384 dimming zones. So 384 dimming zones on the U7K. Last year's U8H had over 500 zones, so it has a disadvantage of about 150, let's say. So let's see if that makes a difference. And also you have to remember, Hisense doesn't necessarily want to push the U7K hard, because then who'd buy the U8K for $400 more, right? So that's something to think about, but we'll see. And of course, there's Dolby Vision IQ. So if you caught Classy's here, you could ask him about this. If you caught his interview with Spears and Munsell, Stacey Spears and Don Munsell, and we were talking about Dolby Vision, apparently Dolby Vision IQ is 4.0. So if they get content that's Dolby Vision, whatever, it will scale up to 4.0. Now that's on the LG OLED. Maybe it'll happen on the Hisense. We'll see if there's a big difference. But ultimately, I think Dolby Vision ends up less about creators' intent, but more about the user preference, right? So keep that in mind. Where you're using Dolby Vision, whether it's Dolby Vision IQ, Dolby Vision Bright, Dolby Vision Dark, choose the one that looks good. At this point, it has nothing to do with accuracy. We know that. It's more of, I like Dolby Vision IQ. It looks better. Hey, I'm in. So that's something to remember. Here's something unique for this price range. ATSC 3.0 and mini LED and a bunch of dimming zones. So that's good if those of you are asking specifically, it doesn't have ATSC 3.0. This one does, IMAX enhanced. I assume that's audio, right? Because the video version, it just comes from the source. So it is not the TV. And it really doesn't make a difference if it's IMAX enhanced or not. Ultimately, the TV's audio is not good enough to demonstrate the full volume of IMAX enhanced. Now, if you have an AVR and you're going through eARC, okay, right, so you'll get the IMAX enhanced source through eARC to your AVR. Filmmaker mode, of course, here's something, Wi-Fi 6E. Wow, that's quite impressive for a budget TV. And let's see what else we got here. Oh, it has HDR 10 plus gaming for PC gamers out there. There are no titles right now with HDR 10 plus on the PC, but it is coming hopefully by the end of the year, early next year. And going through more things, FreeSync Premium Pro, that's for PC gamers. And of course, 2 HDMI full bandwidth 2.1 ports like everyone else. And I think that's it. So any questions about the specs right now? Make sure I gotta catch everyone's questions here. Hey Max, thanks for joining us. And if I don't catch your question, don't forget to ask many times. Hopefully I'll catch it, especially since I don't have my partner today. So making sure I catch everyone. Hey Asaf, the U8K is not here today. I have the U7K. The U8K is coming. Let me put this up real quick. There we go. The U8K is coming in about 2 weeks. So they have the U7K here right now. So I said, Hisense, send it to me. I'll take what I can get. I will review this. And then when the U8K arrives, you'll see how much brighter it is or how much better it is. And then you can make your decision. But most likely, we already know the U8K is going to cost pretty much the same as the QM8, right? So MSRP, it looks like it's identical. And street pricing will probably also drop to the same identical pricing. So keep that in mind if you're saving for the U8K. And a reminder, the U7K is their entry-level mini LEDs, so we don't expect it to perform as well. The question is it just a slightly dimmer version of high-quality HDR? That's the question. The U8K is going to release this month in June, anytime now. It could be this week, it could be next week. So those of you wondering, you'll see it on Best Buy, maybe on Amazon. It'll say either pre-order or coming soon. So, but again, definitely do not get it at MSRP, because within a few weeks it will drop to street pricing, which is like 15% lower than what the MSRP is. And I've already got confirmation that it'll be around $849 for the 65-inch U7K. So you see that discount difference between what you see as MSRP and actually $850. You'll see similar discounts on the U8K when it comes out. This is a good question. Between the U7K and the Q7. Unfortunately, I don't have the Q7. I haven't seen the Q7. The Q7 doesn't have mini LED, but that doesn't mean it's any less of a TV. The mini LED, when you see it, what it does is it gives you brightness with less energy consumption. So mini LED is more about efficiency than image quality. The number of dimming zones and the software algorithm is what determines the blooming control and the deep blacks and all of that. The mini LEDs themselves are more about brightness without the energy consumption. So since the Q7 doesn't get that bright anyway, I can see why TCL is like, well, why do we need mini LED? We're not pushing it that hard. And the U7K happens to have mini LED, but it doesn't mean that it'll be any more bright or less bright. I mean, at best, it may use less energy for the same brightness. Just spec comparison. But as far as actual image quality, I have yet to see the Q7, but I hope to have it at the M-Wave that's coming next month. So if you guys haven't seen M-Wave, MWAVE, the Midwest AV Experience in July, I think 17, something around there, I'll be there with Brian. We'll be demonstrating and comparing all the TVs, the QM8, QM7, Q7, QM8, U7K, U8K, the OLEDs, S90C versus the C3, maybe the G3 will be there. So you guys have a sense of, well, between these price differences, what are the actual image quality in a bright room that most people have? And you could see for yourself if you're there in person. Now, I will do a live stream for the entire time so you can actually see soundbar comparisons and content and real content. We'll play with the settings and you can see for yourself how these settings work out with all these TVs neck and neck, side by side. So it'll be about 8 TVs, so it'll be pretty cool. Okay. Thanks for the question, boss. Would I get better specular highlights from the QM8 versus the 77-inch C2? The QM8, the entire image will be brighter. However, the individual small specular highlights, the C2 will still be brighter. That is the advantage of pixel self-emissive pixels from OLED will always be brighter at the smallest 0.2%, right? Whereas the QM8, the APL will be brighter, meaning the entire screen will be brighter and the larger windows will be brighter. But as they get smaller, and I'm going to run a couple of HDR scenes from movies, you'll see in, for example, The Greatest Showman, where she's wearing that hat that has little sparkles on it. On the OLED, it will always be brighter. Very difficult for LCD TVs to get the same brightness, but if the window is slightly larger maybe, then that can get brighter. So it really depends on your preference. If you're in a bright room, really you need the entire image to be bright sometimes. So it really depends on your use case. If you're in a dark room, I prefer the 77-inch C2 because I do like the specular highlights. It gives it that three-dimensionality, but in a bright room, well, it doesn't matter because the entire TV needs to be bright, and so a lot of people prefer the LCD mini LED TVs. Hopefully that helps answer your question. And what are the benefits of U8K over the 7? You will see it here with the QM8 and the U8H. You will see how the U8H, which is last year's predecessor to the U8K, and the QM8, you will see when you have that many more dimming zones, the differences. And I think the U8K will have a similar level of performance as the QM8 and probably better than U8H because it does have twice the dimming zones as the U8H, which means the U8K and the QM8 both have over 1,000 dimming zones. And that will allow it to have better specular highlights, deeper blacks, and overall it'll have a brighter image because the mini LEDs can now push it hard without worrying about blooming. Hey, David William, glad to see you. Making sure I get some of your questions before we jump in so you could see what it looks like real quick. You're welcome, Cyborg. Just want a massive thank you to FOMO Be the Installer Brian for all the help. Still enjoying my 85J from 2021. OLEDs are great, whether it's the C9 or newer. I had the A9G for the longest time, and I liked it. I didn't upgrade until the A90J came out, which was a bit brighter thanks to that heatsink, but actually it's mostly because of the new chemistry. But the real jump is the MLA, if you are a WOLED fan or the QD OLED. However, in a dark room, I still think the A85J is a phenomenal TV, so good choice. Enjoy it until it falls off. Hey, Michael Wyckoff, always good to see you. Oh, this is a great question. I want to jump in this, and then we'll look at some of the U7K Spears and Munsell samples. We'll start with skin tones and stuff so you have an idea what it looks like, but I want to hit this question because this is a good one. FOMO, random question. Do you think Vizio has a future at this point? No new models announced, shelf space seemingly shrinking everywhere. Will Roku take their spot? So I'm going to take a second to talk about the genius that is Vizio. And I know I've mentioned it before. Vizio, per TV, makes more money than anybody else. More than Samsung, LG, but only recently. They've been losing money, and they're like, how do we make money? It doesn't make sense that we put so much money into the P Quantum X, the PX, and yet we're not making money because it takes so much investment to make sure it works, to stay in the game. You saw LG, they gave up chasing LCD performance, right? They're just focused on OLED. Sony is giving up chasing LCD mini LED performance, right? Their X95L is their best TV this year, and that's it. The X90L is just limping along. And so Vizio, they don't have the resources to keep up. But instead, what are they doing? They're using SmartCast. With SmartCast, they are making more money per TV. So this is their new business model. And let me know if you agree with this if you were a businessman. They don't make money on the TV sales themselves. They sell it at near cost, possibly below cost. So whatever cheap TV they can get from China, whatever, let's rebrand it as Vizio. But with the advertising and all the deals on SmartCast, they are making more money in ad revenue, in partnership revenue per TV than Samsung. So this is my fear. Samsung's like, wait a minute, we're spending all this money and Vizio's making more money than us and their TVs suck. Why? Because look at the prices of these Vizios, right? You know, they're under 500, they're under 400, they're under 600. They perform just good enough, meaning if it turns on, people are happy because it's so inexpensive, but they're making their money on the ads and the partnerships with Roku and whoever else is on there, right? They're splitting advertising fees. If you look at the recent earnings call, they're like, this is amazing. We laid off engineers, we laid off people, we have less staff. Our TVs are actually worse and we're making more money. This is awesome, right? We're going to double down on the software. So what they're doing now is all their investment is on the SmartCast experience. And we know how unstable it is, right? So let's fast forward 3 years. If the Vizio SmartCast ends up being awesome in 3 years, does it matter that their hardware sucks? Because they're never going to sell to us. They're like, okay, we will leave that race to Samsung and Hisense and TCL. You guys have money. Go for it. We are just going to focus on the El Cheapo TVs with the great software, make money on ad revenue. That's where it's at. And we're even willing to sell it below cost just so you can pick up our TVs. That's where Vizio is. And so let me know, are you guys going to buy Vizio if it's that inexpensive? I mean, think about it. An 85-inch Vizio, yeah, that's barely passable, but it's good enough. It's better than a 20-year-old TV. And it's, let's say, $500. A $500 85-inch Vizio where you have to put up with some ads. That's what they're thinking. So good question, Rocky. All right, what I'm going to do is put some images of the U7K real quick, and let's see what happens here. So let's add this. There we go. Let's take this away. And okay. So here we have, turn up the exposure. Okay, this is the U7K. Above it will be the U8H. To the right of the U7K will be the QM8. So I want you guys just to see now, I haven't calibrated it. This is out of the box. It's in filmmaker mode. All processing is turned off. We will play with the processing, you know, dynamic tone mapping and dynamic contrast, enhancer, all that stuff. So you guys can see whether it can keep up with the other TVs if we turn on some of that processing magic, right? But in the meantime, this is what you're going to get. So make sure you guys get a chance to see this right here. Okay, so far, I have to tell you, the skin tones, as far as out of the box, it doesn't look terrible. They did a pretty good job out of the box. Obviously, calibration will make it more accurate. But as you can see with the skin tones, it actually looks pretty good. There you go. And for the most part, I don't think you guys would be unhappy with out-of-the-box accuracy. Now, panel variance being what it is, you know, some will be slightly more of this than the other, but mine is not any golden sample. It was not calibrated. Although Hisense sent it to me, they're not in the business of fiddling it with a golden sample, right? They just send whatever it is. Some TV makers might do something like that, but Hisense, they don't really care. I think every Hisense I've gotten from Hisense, a couple of them actually kind of broke, so they had to take it back. So believe me when I say they don't really test it before I get it. So more likely than not, this is something you'll get out of the box. Just adjusting the exposure so it matches what I see. So the skin tones look pretty natural on my side. Now, my camera obviously cannot fully capture it. My camera actually is shifting a bit blue, but you know, it is what it is, right? It's pretty close. Okay, so these are the skin tones, and now let's go to Any questions you guys may have real quick? Oh, and thank you, Classy, for getting rid of spammers. It's hard to keep track of all these guys. It's always good to have friends, right? Hisense U8K, Q7 U8K. The U8K is a better TV than the Q7 just because it's a different tier. Just keep that in mind, Elisa. Unlike Samsung, where the Q8FN and the Q9FN were so close, or when they had the Q90R and the Q80R very close, and even last year, the QN85B and the QN90B, arguably very close. I will tell you that the U8K and the U7 and the Q7 not close. U8K, U7K not close. Q7, QM8 not close. Hisense and TCL does a very good job of separating their tiers. I mean, you're not going to get a great deal going down beyond you're going to get what you pay for. So on the one hand, that's great. You're getting what you pay for. Unlike Samsung, we're like, oh man, I could have saved some money and got myself the QN85B. Because what Samsung does is the image quality is very similar, but on the higher tier, it's more like cosmetics. Maybe the audio is slightly louder, not always. Maybe the bezel is prettier. Maybe you get a One Connect box. You get quality of life cosmetic differences on the higher tier than the lower tier, but the image quality are very close between the top two tiers. On Hisense and TCL, the drop off is really the image quality. So it's safe to say that the Q7 will not be as bright as the QM8, or the U7K will not be as bright as U8K. Unlike the S90C and the S95C, this is another example. They're $1,000 apart. That $1,000 between the S95C 77-inch, which I have, and the S90C 77-inch, which I also have, and I'll finish that review this week. I've been watching it, and the reason why it's taking so long is I cannot find a scene where I can say, oh yeah, the S90C is really behind, barely behind, and without a measurement tool, there is no way I could tell that the S90C is just slightly less bright in this one specular highlight, this tiny, right? Everything else identical. I mean, brightness, everything. So what you're paying for with the 77-inch Q95C is the One Connect box, the silver bezel, possibly the Q Symphony, compatibility with the soundbar system, so maybe it sounds better, I don't know. But if you're just looking at image quality, I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. The 77-inch S90C is the equal of the S95C with maybe 0.5% brightness difference in specular highlights on a 10,000 nit content from Spheres and Munsell. If you run it on anything else, Netflix, movies, Kaleidoscape, no difference. Absolutely no difference. And the S90C is the equal of the G3. And this is why Classy, myself, and everyone else were like, the C3 is doomed because the S90C, for the price of a C3, it performs like an S95C. So back to you, Lisa. Samsung, this is an example, right? Top tier, next tier, same image quality. Not the same with the Q7 and the QM8. But yeah, great question. I'm sorry, that's a little bit long-winded, but I figured, hey, you know what? That's what I got to do. Oh my gosh, Max, thank you for that. These guys are just brutal. What is up with those bots? I'm getting hit. Okay, so let's go into a little bit of, let's see. So now we go into the demo material, and I think that this one will be, okay, demonstration. We're going to start off at 600 nits, and I'm going to turn on the QM8 and the I'll turn on the U8H first, right? Because the prices are very similar. If you go on Best Buy right now, the U8H is $900. The U7K, I'm sorry, the U8H is $900, $950 around there. The U7K will be $850. So literally a $50 difference. So the question you're going to have is, should I pay an extra $50 for the U8H or should I get the newer U7K? If you're a gamer, you may go for the U7K because they definitely addressed the gaming issues. If you're not a gamer, well, let's see what the U8H, how well it does against the U7K, or how well the U7K does against last year's Editor's Choice. All right, So already you're like, wait a minute, why does it look brighter, right? So let's go over real quick the menu so that you guys see that this is not a setup where I'm setting the U7K up for failure. So the U7K, the settings are quite simple. You go to picture, and you know what? Let me see if, let's make sure I've updated the firmware, because I don't want people to say, oh, he didn't update the firmware. Had he updated the firmware, things would have been awesome. So let's double check. A firmware didn't sneak up on me. Nope, none was detected. So all good. All right. Okay, so let's check out. We're going to put it in, and we're going to put the picture modes, right? So you guys can tell me. So we're going to have it in filmmaker mode. All this stuff is off, right? Brightness. And 1 second here. Ooh, someone just hopped in. And, well, oh, look at him. There he is.
Here I come to save the day.
Ah.
What's up,
All
brother?
right. Let's try to get you in here, my friend.
Get me in. Let me see these. I can't
Watch
even see
it.
the comments. What's going
I
on?
know, right? Let me try to shrink your head.
Shrinking my head.
Here we go.
Sorry I'm late. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, don't worry, my friend. It's all good. Here you go.
Asaph, Michael, Leon, Lisa. What's up, crew? Leaving my boy here all by himself.
Hmm. Let's see.
Let me check out the stream on my phone. How's everybody doing tonight?
They're all awesome. We're answering some
Oh,
questions earlier today,
all
and
right. Okay, you were setting it up.
I am.
I hope you guys liked my angry thumbnail. What's up, Max? What's up, Asaph? All right, here we go. All right. What's
There
up,
we
Getty
go.
G Man?
Hi.
How's everybody?
Okay. All right. Boom,
All right.
boom.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna have to take us out. Okay, I will have you do your. So funny. Oh, here we go.
So
Okay.
I know you guys have been on many live streams with us because I had to literally go through all of our links to find this link. That's how far back we go. But you guys got to understand that FOMO does this live without a net. So
Without that,
my boy takes chances when he does all this stuff. It's amazing how much setup it takes all day. And then he goes on here and he doesn't freak out when things don't work, whether it's Blu-ray players dying. Uh, we gotta give him the props, man. He's not afraid.
I
Yeah, I
was
had the
going.
hat on tonight, Leo. Got a hat on, baby.
I was going over my settings real quick with them.
Mm-hmm.
We're almost done, but I just want to show
Okay.
them what settings I have, right? So,
All
but how
right.
are you doing? I saw your Sony, how impressed you were with the Sony, but then you went and got the Samsung, and all people are like, wait, what happened? You love the Sony X95L, and you went out
yeah.
and are getting the Samsung QN95C, right? And so
Yeah.
people and of course Leo's like, yes, I knew it. So the question
Yeah.
is, why the Samsung and not the Sony?
Well, I mean, it's something I know you and I are gonna do a stream when I come back about this exact conversation as use case is really more important. For all you guys watching, I know you watch other influencers, you watch our group. We got a lot of them in the chat right now. We got Flat Plasma TV for Gaming's in the chat. We got Max is in the chat. Um, Taking our opinions and what we review and what we like, it's always important to also see what we purchase for ourselves. And what I mean by that is, I take everybody's reviews serious. I take my own eyes serious, obviously, but use case will always trump all. Meaning, whatever it is you use your display for me, I am a high end PC gamer, and there's just nothing Sony can do to fill that need. I don't care what they put out. They have a lot of things to have to address. Same with Hisense and or TCL, as a matter of fact. There's things they need to for the PC gamer they have to get to. You know, for console gamings they're fine, but I do like the Samsung image this year, and I have a video coming out in the next couple days. Samsung why they hate, and I understand why they're hated, but even as I make my choice as somebody who's in this industry, it's amazing how many people are telling me, "No, no, you're making the wrong choice."
I know
So
it.
it's really your use case, and I'll tell you that me, FOMO, Classy, Brandon, Max, the whole crew, KG, our whole group. I'll tell you, I know all of them personally. We talk off camera. Nobody has a preference for a brand. I know that sounds ridiculous, but you know, um, none of these guys on the side say, "Hey, I like this one because it's a Sony or it's a Samsung." I would honestly tell you if we were all partial to certain types of images, but as far as the brand FOMO, I could care less. I mean, they could come out with a Zenith next week, and I got you if it's good.
Yeah.
So,
Phil, I was going to
go ahead.
ask you, since you picked up or you are picking up the Samsung 85-inch, what are your thoughts on Phil Wang's comment? Because I have an opinion on this. $2,200 for the TCL 85-inch QM8. I think it's a huge buy. Now, obviously, early in the year, firmware updates will make it better. All the
Mhm.
TVs. This applies to all of
Yep.
them. So any rough edges on any TV you see today should be cleaned up for the most part by this time next year. But again, what do we always say, Brian? Get the TV as you see it. So hold
Yep.
off. I say wait until Black Friday once the firmware matures. But for what you're getting for streaming and movie watching HDR, that QM8 for 2200 is amazing. But then gaming, it's
Absolutely.
supposed to also have 144 hertz. It has the features you want. Brian, would you be tempted to get the 2200 QM8 if Robert gets it into Value Electronics and you get to compare gaming? I mean, is there something with the Samsung that gaming is unique to Samsung if the QM8's
S-
144 hertz works?
So it's a great question because I think we're going to see that in Hisense's settings. To me, Hisense and TCL, while they're almost there picture quality wise, why I'm sitting with you all, their picture settings, we saw that with the QM8, its ability to get the image where we need it, their preset list alone is so small. They don't have the ability yet to get the image I would want. With the Samsung, I can make it look any which way I want as I put it against the X95L. The X95L was what it was. There was very little change with live color, very little change with brightness or gradation preferred, where the Samsung could look wildly different, whether it's accurate or not. I can choose what I like. Hisense and TCL to me still have a little bit of a ways to go before they can reach that as far as their settings. The Hisense settings I've seen are very convoluted throughout the years, even on their projectors. So for me, there's still a ways to go. But guys, also keep in mind, as much as I'll buy these and I'll keep it, I'm not married to these. My TVs last me a year, 2 years tops, and then I move on to the next thing because I'm in this industry. So that's another thing about watching what me and the other guys buy because we don't get attached to anything. So I will compare all the because what's funny about the QN95C FOMO is I put it in two comparisons and it lost, and I
Yeah.
still want it.
Speaking
So
of speaking of losing, can you see my comparison here, Brian? So
yep.
you
What do we
see
got?
the bottom is the U7K, and let me add the
Mm-hmm.
U8K on top so you guys can see that. Okay, there you go. So those who just joined
UAK is a
us,
lot
U8K on
brighter, huh?
top, U7K on the bottom. So now I left up the signature as far as the grade color, the brightness grade. This is 600 nits BT 2020, and even at 600 nits, which is not that bright. That's actually standard. The U7K is not as bright. And the Hisense U8H has been calibrated and it's max brightness, whatever. So you guys can see, I'm not setting up the U7K for failure. You guys saw the settings of the U7K, filmmaker mode, everything else is off. Let's make sure that this is also filmmaker mode. Everything else is standard, even though it is calibrated. Normally calibration makes it less bright, not more bright, right? So warm one, motion clearness, noise reduction off, active contrast off, dynamic tone mapping off, right? Everything is off. So this is
Mhm.
actually very accurate to the source, and it was calibrated. And I know Sammy just loves the accuracy of the U8H. And so let's see if we can make the U7K a little bit brighter without losing accuracy. And this is, so again, it's in filmmaker mode, but yeah, it's really lacking. And this is something I'm going to reach out to Hisense and let them know. So brightness is max, contrast is 50. Those things will not make a difference. If you change dark detail, does it do anything to this image? Active contrast is on low.
So
Turning it off,
quickly, phone before you
uh-huh.
continue, let's just give context to what this TV is replacing. This TV is not a replacement for the U8K, is it? This is the step
No,
down. This is still
you know
mini
what?
LED.
My bad. It's not U8K, it's U8H.
U8H. So this is the U8H from
U8H,
last year, but
yes,
this isn't. But this
U8H.
isn't actually the successor to it. This is the step down. If
Forget
I'm
everything I
for
said. U8H. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
so for context, guys, I believe this is the U8H was last year's flagship for the most part, right?
Yes, U8H was last year's
So
flagship. It has 500 and something, 508 dimming zones. The U7K has 384 dimming zones. Both are
yeah,
65 inches. And
and
it is
the
definitely,
U7K is not the successor to last year's U8H. It is considered a step down, correct?
yes, it is the successor to last year's U7H, a
Okay.
step up. It is their dedicated gaming TV because it has 144 hertz and
Yep.
the full bandwidth HDMI for 2 ports. Yep.
So if we stop there for 1 second, everyone, what I don't like about what we just talked about is they're still giving gamers the middle of the road in terms of the 900H. If you remember with Sony, your gaming TV should be your brightest and boldest because gamers spend money.
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate the U7K, but now you're putting me in that spot where I cannot buy this TV if it's the gaming one over the larger the U8K. I'm gonna want that to be my daily driver with gaming. It shouldn't like picture quality shouldn't suffer, is what I'm trying to say. But just for context, guys, this is not the successor to last year's U8H. This is the step down. So then my point is, by giving that context, we can tell if it gets beat, it's okay because it's not supposed to beat last year's flagship, though it should match it. But go ahead. You
Yep.
gotta set the stage.
And and everyone who just or everyone who've been here for the last 30 minutes, the
Yep.
top TV is the U8H. It's not U8K. That was my typo. I apologize for the
Yep.
confusion. The U8K is coming in 2 weeks, so we'll put it up there. The dynamic tone mapping I have on. As you can see, it actually helps a lot. Um, it does raise the brightness and the highlights. Active contrast is currently on. If I turn it off, so what it does is, if you look at active contrast, it deepens the blacks and some of the midtones. It lowers it so that the brightness looks like it's brighter. So it's not really brighter per se. It just makes the blacks blacker, so it looks brighter. So my recommendation is you can play with active contrast on high to see if it helps. As you can see, I'm putting active contrast on high, and it helps a bit.
Yeah.
But look how it looks too contrasty, right? I mean, it's
But
not
does it
accurate.
give it but I guess the thing is with active contrast or dynamic contrast, does it add a lot of noise FOMO or is it pretty clean
It's pretty
as far
well.
as
The source is
aliasing?
so clean. Yeah, it's not an issue at all.
Okay.
But now
And
my
dynamic
cons
tone mapping, what settings do we have? Just on and off, or do we have like a
it's
static or
just
an
on and off,
active?
just on and
See
off.
that now real quick before we go forward, right there I'm illustrating the difference between the big boys and Hisense. You have brightness preferred, you have gradation preferred on Sony, you have active and
Mhm.
static on Samsung. So
And
for
this,
me, that setting alone is worth the difference in money, if that makes sense to you guys.
and as you can, and this is what concerns me, Brian. See local
Talk
dimming
to me.
off, high, absolutely nothing.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. I know this is an early sample, I get it, but
Yeah,
this is what I'm
this
saying to you
could be.
guys. This is and
So
we're
it
not
could
in
be a
a
bug.
game mode, so you should see
No,
difference.
and it's possible that because it's 600 nit HDR, that local dimming does nothing. So I'll raise the HDR to something higher, which probably will embarrass it further. But let's go to 2000 nits.
But these are as I'm saying to you guys, when FOMO asked me just a few minutes ago, you can take all the money you want off of them. If these settings don't function, then you lose what I call flexibility of image. And I won't pay for that. You can give it to me free, But if local dimming doesn't really do anything, or and tone mapping only has that one setting on or off, is there an HIG setting? Is there that flexibility? Dynamic tone mapping looks amazing at times. Other times, like static would look better, or active. But the ability to change the image is so important. And if you don't have that flexibility, again, we're talking about value, but I'm just saying to you guys, um, that's part of the reason.
It looks like local dimming is not really working. So as you see me shift from off to
Hmm.
high, this is 2000 nit content.
You should see it.
It doesn't do anything. Now let's test that off. I'm going to leave it on high. I'm going to test this out with the U8H because maybe it's a Hisense thing. I forgot if the U8H does anything. I think it does. So it's just so you guys can see.
Real quick, special shout out to Lisa in the comments. Lisa just had a pretty major loss in her life, and I want to say I'm sorry for your loss. Love you guys in the community, but Lisa, thinking about you and your friend that had passed away recently. So just want to say that quickly. Hello, Lisa. Hello, crew. But we do pay attention to the community and how everybody's doing. So I hope you're doing okay.
Yes, absolutely. We are a community, so we share in your pain. Now, Vladex, the U7, excuse me, the U7K brightness is similar to an OLED. Maybe similar to the A9G OLED. Today's OLED is a little bit brighter in the specular highlights. So
Did you say
maybe
A9G?
yeah, going old school. So it
Oh, we
looks
going back in time, baby.
it looks
All right.
like the dimming on the U7K doesn't do much, the local dimming feature, and maybe it's not supposed to. On the U8H, it does do something. You actually see it. It's not dramatic, but it does do stuff, right? It brightens it a bit. And we'll go into the bright highlights. That's where the local dimming really has an effect. Oh, right here, this is perfect. All right, so I'll stop right here.
So U8H is what, 950 right now at 65?
Yep.
And this one is 17K, U7K. Because this is what we always talk about. What's the pricing? And this is the U7H. No, that pricing is not even up yet.
It'll be 850. So MSRP looks very high, but I've been told that it will be 850 street once the time comes.
Okay.
So
And
now,
they're okay.
yeah, let's see if local
It's
dimming
always
helps.
always important if last year's flagship is cheaper. Um, but now it's a pretty bland image even on a U8H. Is that because we're in filmmaker mode?
It is in filmmaker mode. Oh, you know what?
Okay.
Maybe it works better. That is a good point. Let's take it out of filmmaker mode and put it
Got
in
a
something
pretty
dynamic.
bland image.
Yeah.
You don't get
And
to
we
go to
already know that.
dynamic, baby. You ain't gotta go that far.
Let's go into
Let's go to
HDR
sports.
standard.
All right, so let me go
Oh,
back real quick.
oh,
Let me
it's a
see the
bit brighter.
presets real. FOMO. Let me see
Okay.
the presets real quick. All right, so
Vivid,
quickly for everybody, we have vivid.
which adds a lot of blue.
Okay, we have standard.
Standard looks the same brightness, except it's more accurate or it's warmer. Energy saving, we'll just skip.
Yeah.
Game, we'll skip. HDR Sport, looks the same as standard. I bet you they just changed the motion settings. HDR Theater, ooh, actually HDR Theater might be better. Let's compare HDR Theater to Filmmaker. I think HDR Standard might end up being the brightest. Let's IMAX.
Well, IMAX usually doesn't make a lot of difference. Okay.
IMAX looks like SDR.
So at least
Okay.
I guess I like even in HDR that you have this many presets. Now, when you turn it to SDR, do the presets change? Do you end up with more options like LG, or is it? We'll talk about that after.
Yeah, we'll go into SDR mode and you
Okay.
can see. So you know what? Actually, I think HDR Standard ends up being the more HDR-like image. Let me go back to 600 nit content so we can see.
What's up, Mozart's Ghost? What's up? I think Buddy had a super chat somewhere.
Okay,
Did I miss it?
that's fine.
It might have snuck in because I can't see super chats the same way in these comments. I'm sorry, guys. Too busy talking smack. Mayoko, best girl, I love Hisense, but I wish they would hurry up and adopt a native 10-bit panel. One of the big reasons I'm watching to see if the QM8 is big enough of a jump to justify getting before seeing the U8K.
All right, so you guys can see, yeah, yes, classy. The backlight is maxed out at, well, what few settings I have, definitely maxed out. But I'll show you guys real quick. So let's put an HDR standard and I'll warm up the color and see what happens.
And Scott
So
Coakley, I can't get you an X95 at 65 from Value Electronics. They won't be able to do that for you.
active contrast is on mediums, turn it off. There you
Way back in the
go.
comments. Damn, that was like an hour ago.
Yeah, let me know if you find the super chat.
So Buddy Love said it's more like a super joke. All right, let me go back and find it. I'll find it in the regular comments. That's
Remember,
all right. Those are the best, Buddy.
U7K. It's U7K. You guys are like, you're killing a TV that's okay. The U8H is good. This is
This
why.
thing's a piece of crap.
No.
That's why, but Buddy,
Okay.
that's why I wanted to give it context. That's all. Okay,
Okay,
Buddy Love.
now
The only brand I'm loyal to is RCA. Thanks for the review. Well, look, if RCA rolls back in and they're killing it, we'll put it on here.
I have to tell you guys, in HDR standard, it's a lot closer in 600 nit content. So I'm going to go back
Yeah, it is.
to close to the
Okay.
beginning, so you guys can
Ooh,
see
right there.
how close
There
it
was
is.
better.
All right. Okay. You guys can see it's actually
Better.
closer, although
It
it's a
might
little cooler, right? If you guys calibrate, it'll probably be even closer than that. Let me go into warm 2. I think I have it on
Mhm.
warm 1.
Well, that brightness disparity is gone.
Yes,
So
because I have
that's
it
key.
on HDR standard. That's why.
Glad to hear it, Mozart. Glad to hear it.
There we go. Yeah, let's take off dynamic tone mapping.
Eliza, I've only had Vizio and TCL. Thinking of Hisense and MiniLED for something different. It's a good choice. They are excellent. Vizio, I have a really hard time with these days.
Okay, so at 600 nits, HDR standard actually is a lot closer. So avoid filmmaker mode for now, because it is just, I don't understand how it could get so dim. So at 600 nit content, this is most stuff you're going to find graded in the past. Maybe the newer stuff, maybe brighter. This is very close now. So
Can you
HDR
pause it on the
standard.
Beaver? FOMO, can you go to the Beaver real quick?
The specular
That Beaver
highlights
better.
is not as strong, though, as you can see. Let's go back to Brian's favorite Beaver.
All right. So if we stay at the Beaver, it's you look at the highlights, the blue behind him almost looks brighter, but to your eye, the fur on his chest or her chest is just so much more.
Yes,
That's
it's
where you
more
see the
vibrant.
real depth.
Yeah, the U8H, it is more vibrant. Can you see it on YouTube? Because I can see that the U8H, it's just more vibrant out of
Well,
the
the fur
box.
just has all this different
Yeah.
contrast to it that it kind of shows you what brightness is for and where it hurts it sometimes. Because at some points the U7 looks a little brighter, but it's not helping it.
Well, let's see if active contrast can do that.
Do it.
What do
Come
you
on.
think? As it gets closer, I'm going to have to leave it on active contrast high until we find a
What?
scene where it ruins it. Because what
FOMO,
did we
put that
say,
on
right?
wax.
I mean, what did we say
FOMO's
about
using
this, right?
FOMO's using contrast enhancer. Come on, what are we doing now? Come on, buddy. I
All
hear
right.
you, man. It's all about
But
the
as you
hotness,
can
baby.
see, it's blowing out the highlights, right? So
Yeah.
on top, you see the details of the rocks. Active contrast brings out the fur, but it blows out the highlights in the rocks. But this is good for you guys to see what active contrast does. It does raise the brightness, though.
Now,
And
what
this is
happens
only
if we?
600 minute content. Uh-huh.
Oh, I thought it was 10,000, so we're at 600. Okay, I got you.
Okay,
All right.
I will take it to 10,000, but
Taking it
10,000 is
to
there. Okay, this is a great scene because I'm not getting any highlights from the U7K. You can see the highlights on the U8H. The U7K, it looks very disappointing. 1 second.
Do we have anybody in the chat who has bought this TV already and is white knuckling it? That's what I want to know. Because when we did the QM8, who was it?
Yeah.
Michael Berkman, who was in the comments? We had the QM8 that ordered it and was like, "Oh my god, I'm sweating." If you're in the comments, please say hello because that was a great stream. I just ordered it. Is it gonna be okay?
Dynamic contrast. Okay, you gotta leave that on, guys. Okay,
Oh
so
my god.
dynamic contrast needs to be on. Suddenly, it's beginning to perform. Just so you guys know, on the U8H, dynamic tone mapping is off. So On the U7K, dynamic tone mapping on, HDR standard, warm 2. Now it's starting to perform completely different settings than the U8H, which really is just, it does everything without me having to do much, right? Filmmaker mode and advanced settings. Let's see. Oh, that's just a
So you're
motion.
basically saying the U7K has to have like a suit or armor on to go against a naked U8H.
Yeah, like active contrast is on, dynamic tone mapping is on, like off. I mean, everything the U8H, all the enhancements are off. On the U7K, you have to turn almost everything on, but it looks actually pretty good.
Oh, Megatron said FOMO it was Michael Grubb. That was the
Michael,
guy. And Terry Dartman says, yeah, he was on AVS later. He's like, yes! That was
and
awesome.
you know what? He's nowhere to be found anymore. Smart move.
He's just enjoying his TV. He unplugged it. He cut the LAN cable. He's like, no, thanks. Unsubscribe.
Okay, so U7K is actually doing pretty good now. Now that I have the settings down, I'm comfortable with it because look,
Okay.
it's matte, but this is 600 nit content. Let's up the game to 1000 nit content. Let's see what happens here. So this is more of what you're going to see today, right? Things graded today will be brighter, and it's keeping up. All right, in this mode, in these settings, it's actually keeping up with the U8H.
Now
Oh,
the
actually,
question will be in real content, will that dynamic contrast hurt it in terms of noise? You know what I mean? Like that.
I'm gonna put in some movies. Oh, this
Attaboy.
is a great one to pause right
Oh, there
here.
we go. Okay.
Okay, so this is the subtleties. The U8H has more gradient detail behind the sun. There's more orange, there's more shades. The U7K lacks that extra depth, but if it wasn't side by side, I'd go, oh, look, the U7K looks great. But because the U8H above, there is more of that orangeness there,
Yeah.
right? So these are the subtle things that you're paying a little bit extra for the U8H for, but everything else looks the same. So now I'm convinced that the settings on the U7K needs to be standard, HDR standard, active, let me double check. I mean, oh, it's so unfortunate I have to turn everything on because I make it a habit not to leave anything on, like on the U8H. But yep, active
Well,
contrast is high, tone mapping
FOMO
is very
too.
high.
If you turn that stuff up on the U8H, the conversation changes again.
Yes,
You
well,
know what I'm
so the
saying?
funny
That's the
thing is,
challenge.
here's the thing. The U7K is similar accuracy as the U8H. If I turn this on the U8H, it actually becomes less accurate. And so here,
Oh,
and I'll
interesting.
do it right now. Yeah, because this is
Okay.
accurate, but if I turn it, and let's turn it on, we'll see. So I'll show you guys. So active contrast, let's start with dynamic tone mapping. Slightly brighter. See, it's not a huge change, which I like. And then active contrast, turn it up to high. Yeah, all it does is raise the midtones. It's actually, its active contrast is actually not as good as the U7K. I'll turn it off. Yeah, so dynamic tone mapping is raising the midtones a little bit. So the U7K in 1000 nit content, so this is most streaming content, very close to the U8H if you have it in these settings. So far, we'll see as it goes through
Well,
this.
yeah, Mayako Best Girl active U8H active contrast is awful. So do they behave much differently from each other, FOMO, from last year to this year,
Oh,
from what you can
just real
tell, as
quick.
far as implementation?
Yes, light sensor is off, Chris, but thank you for that. Okay, what were we saying, Brian? Sorry.
My uncle girl said the U8H active contrast is awful. That raises the lows and mids too much. Do you see that? Does the U7K have a
Yes.
better implementation from what you can see?
Yes,
That's
absolutely, and
good.
that's
There
what
you
we're
go.
saying. The U7K with those on makes it look like the U8H without all of the negative effects. So right here, where the sun is, I'm going to turn down the exposure so you can see that a bit more.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, guys, hit that like button. FOMO's working very hard at this. We got
Ah,
279 in the chat. Please
it
take a second,
is.
just tap that like button for him.
So these enhancements on the U7K actually make, I wish it was default, but instead you actually have to turn it on, and that's the unfortunate thing, I think. So local dimming, it really doesn't matter. High or low, it just makes no change. I don't know why it's on medium, but so active contrast, if I turn it off, it's less HDR. It makes everything flat. It's as if the specular highlights don't exist. dynamic tone mapping also does that as well. So I'm looking at it, comparing side by side. These enhancements, it slightly clips, just slightly, some of the detail on the U7K, but I only notice it because it's next to the U8H. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I'd leave it on. But yeah, I mean, the U8H, it's just out of the box. This is what you're getting, although mine's calibrated, but I didn't turn any enhancements on. Um, so this is one where those enhancements kind of artificially makes that spot a little bit brighter than they should be, whereas the U8H is a bit smoother. And again,
Yeah.
this is the 2000 nit content, which is, or 1000 nit content, which is what you're going to see mostly in streaming and stuff.
Or in that
Oh,
shot, it looks
we'll go
pretty
to
good.
2000. Yeah, and here it's actually a little bit brighter than the
Yeah.
U8H, but we'll go to 2000 content, and you guys can see what happens when you challenge it with a brighter source. Oh, this looks great right here. They look very similar,
Yeah. All right,
but
guys,
this
we're
is
about 45 minutes in. Let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking about these first impressions so far. Are you not impressed? Are you, again, keep in mind how much it costs. Let us know as we go on what your thoughts are. That way we can kind of gauge because we do this together kind of on the fly.
yes. Okay, so this is the kind of stuff the local dimming is supposed to change, obviously.
Mhm.
And so
Yep.
let's see if it does do that. This is
Yeah, because that
local
looks very
dimming's
different.
last chance to make a difference. So it's on high, off. Yeah, it doesn't do anything. It literally barely does anything. I think it does a little shift, but I cannot really tell the difference. So, I mean, I leave it on high, but it really doesn't do
So
anything on the U7K.
Real Owner Reviews has a quick question. Does the screen on the U8H appear to glitch randomly for anyone else? Do you mean on the stream, Real Owner, or do you mean in your personal life with your TV?
Okay, actually, I'm pretty impressed because it's keeping up in brightness with in 2000 nit content with the U8H. The subtle sophistication of the actual tone mapping of the U8H is a touch better, but just overall brightness is actually keeping up. So we'll hit 10,000 nit content to see if it can still keep up.
Now, how does the light control appear, Foam? When they say local dimming is not working much, but are we
Oh, it's
minimizing blooming?
amazing.
It looks good.
It looks great. Okay, so let's actually talk about that. The blooming control is phenomenal. The reason I didn't mention anything is I didn't even notice there was any blooming at
Yeah.
all. So let's take a step back and enjoy the U7K for its blooming control. Right now, up to this point, it is easily a match for the U8H. And that's saying something. That's
Very
saying
much.
that with 504 or 508 dimming zones last year, 384 dimming zones on the U7K, as far as blooming control, it actually matches it. Now here the specular highlights are not as bright, and but this is 10,000 nit content, right? So the U8H is able to manage that in some of these specular highlights, whereas on the U7K, it's kind of clipping that a little bit, like the butterfly wings on that one. And yeah, there
Well,
is a slight glitchiness on the U7. Okay, so this is a great one. 10,000 nit content, it cannot tone map very well here. You're losing a lot of the highlights on the squirrel. So I'm going
yep.
to turn this up a little bit more. And you'll see the top of the leaves, right? The highlights are a bit blown out. And this is what happens because I had to turn on dynamic tone mapping, I had to turn on active contrast for the brightness to keep up. So the U8H is a phenomenal TV. So I cannot wait to see what the U8K looks like. But the
Yeah.
U7K, for whatever reason, it just cannot, the processing tone mapping simply cannot match the U8H in terms of subtlety, but the overall brightness, it's doing the right thing given its limited resources, I guess would be the best way to describe it.
So what would this be looking to match up against, FOMO? Like an X90? If we were
Q7.
comparing TVs?
Yes. So this will
And
be, so it's $850. So $850, we're talking the Sony X85L, which will be
okay.
around that price. We're talking the
Okay.
Q7, which is around that price. And the Samsung Q60, I think it will beat the Q60 in terms of
Well,
brightness for
blooming
sure.
control is phenomenal.
Oh yeah, let's just
Um,
stop right here. Okay, so I'm
yeah,
gonna
because
turn up the exposure so you guys can really see how the blooming
Because
control.
guys, at CES, the difference we thought between TCL and Hisense is that Hisense was full court pressing mini LED, no
Mhm.
direct lit. Their tiers were all going to be full array mini LED versus I think the TCLs were direct lit at this price point, I believe, almost except for the QM8.
So look at that blooming control. So I
Looks
have it
pretty damn good.
overexposed, and it
Wow,
has,
overexposed. It looks like that.
yep, and
Wow.
it has 200 less dimming zones, right? 384, it has 180 less dimming zones, something like that. The 508 dimming zones versus 384, so it's like 120 something less.
Let's hit that Ferris wheel, FOMO, when it comes up.
Yep, Ferris wheel's coming up, man.
We know this by heart.
Look at that. This is really good dimming control. There's
Now,
something
did
to
you
be
see the
said about
settings change much from last year, FOMO, or is it the same settings? There we go. I'd say
here we go.
that looks good even with the
Okay,
exposure up. Bravo.
384 dimming zones. Bravo.
Wow.
And this is pretty good. And the blacks are not quite as deep, but you guys won't notice that because I'm hyper exposing this, right? I mean, my exposure ISO is like major. I could go a little bit higher, try to get it even up more. But you can see that, man, this is just the blacks. If I overexpose it, like super overexpose, you can see that the U8H is a touch darker, but you're not going to notice that in a medium lit
Nice.
room. And even a dark room, you're not going to notice it. And
Yeah.
but look at the blooming control between the Ferris wheel spokes.
Yep.
That for 384 zones, this is
Yep.
as good as the QM90B last year. This
Yeah.
is exactly how good it is. And the QM90B last year had over 700 zones. So this is very
Yep.
impressive for sure.
Well, I mean, in this particular scene, the 900C really struggled with the 8K.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
QN95C struggles with. This is a very hard scene. Um, and look at that. That's more real in line with what you're seeing right there, right,
Yes.
FOMO? Yeah.
Yep. This is
Yeah,
what
B the
you're gonna.
installer in the chat. B is at the
Hey, Brandon,
baseball
how's it
game,
going, man?
always the athlete. What's up, brother? Hope you and the family are doing well. My boy's always doing sports.
And yeah, this is what you're normally going to see, and this is pretty good. There's no
Very good.
obvious blooming. I mean,
But you
this is
think it's lacking, no FOMO, in the specular highlight area in images like that with the lights? You're not seeing that pop?
yeah. So let me go back there so you guys can see. I'm actually very surprised that the specular highlights are very similar. I'm going to
That's
lower
interesting.
the exposure so you can see how close the specular highlights are. No, this is
And
10,000 nit. So this is
what was
very
the what was the U8H at launch last year, price wise, FOMO? Would you say at 65?
1200, 1200.
Okay, damn. All right. Okay.
Okay, so I've lowered the exposure so you guys can see the brightness better, the brightness difference. And honestly, the specular highlights, uh, it's the same.
No, just Brandon.
But
Brandon's funny in the
uh,
comments.
what did Brandon say?
Chilling in Florida, my boy. What's up, Brandon? Making
Oh,
friends over
that's
there?
right. He's on vacation. That's right.
Yeah, you check out his comment though. It's just
I'm almost
don't put it up
afraid.
though. Don't put it up though.
All right. Hey,
Scott's got a super
Scott.
chat. Scott Coakley.
Thank you, Scott, for the super chat. Hisense, how do
I'm
you turn off
sorry.
the display to listen to music only? Thanks. You know what, Scott? I have
Sky is
no
the
idea.
only person I know that uses that feature, but it's important to a lot of people.
I'm going to have to experiment, Scott. So I'll take your
Yeah,
money, but
well,
I can't answer your question. I
yeah,
don't know.
well,
I'm
that's actually not an
failing
easy
miserably.
setting to find on any TV, but yeah.
So I like to pause here and say that the U7K is only a touch less bright than the U8K in the
Brandon.
specular highlights, but it's not night and day for sure. So it's
Yeah,
not
I like it,
bad.
man.
The U7K is a little bit brighter. I just want to make sure. Yeah, the U8K, I'm sorry, U8H. God, the U8H specular highlights is a touch brighter, and it's a little bit more sophisticated in terms of tone mapping and all that stuff. Like right here, the center of the first wheel is probably, if I was to eyeball it, maybe 50 nits brighter. But as you guys can see, even side by side, it's not noticeably brighter. I'll turn up or turn down the exposure a bit more to hopefully separate the brightness. But It's very close. And now let's enter, we're going to enter the QM8 to see how much better the QM8 is. And look at that. I mean, the brightness is so similar on both TVs, right?
You're bringing the QM8 in, baby?
Ah, let's bring the QM8. Let's see what
You got
happens.
some theme music coming in though? Oh,
Let's see.
what is that? 42 inches?
65.
Cute. Oh my god, it's 65 like an iPad.
All
Dude,
right.
my boy Terry, definitely not a Z9K. Terry, your Z9K video goes up tomorrow against the S95C. So if you want to see it, beat it down.
All right. So we're going to start this one over so you guys can see what happens. What
Killing.
happens at 10,000 nits? All three TVs. I have it on a slightly low exposure so that the separation in brightness can be more obvious for you guys.
So we have this guy in the chat. This Be the Installer. He
Be the
said,
installer.
"Be the Installer" sounds very familiar. He said, "Where'd he go?" I hate the comment thing here. Where'd it go?
Oh,
It
this
says,
is
"Is this
pretty
the?" Oh no.
impressive. The
He goes, "I'm not
U7K
impressed. If this is the best Hisense has, I will pass."
This is not the best Hisense has. This is the U7K. It's number 2. The U8K is the number 1 TV. So just
That's
so
because
you guys know,
Brandon only rolls with 100-inch TVs these days, right,
yes,
Brandon? My boy got 100-inch TVs. We have a
Brandon is
super
getting
chat
big time.
from Vishnu.
All right. Thank you,
Oh,
Vishnu.
Vishnu, you have a question?
Yes.
He just
Yeah,
said,
let us know what your question is. Oh, I'm celebrating his first super chat. Thank you, Vishnu.
"Nice, Vishnu, thank you." Brandon trolling at the baseball game. Atta boy.
Oh, let me add the
Oh,
TCL.
Vishnu said, "Please use the same setting, standard mode on both the U7K, and compare
All right.
off-angle view."
All right. Will do.
All right. Okay.
Okay, so but I'll tell you so U7K in standard mode is close, and in some scenes it might be inaccurately bright, but the brightness is not an issue. You just have to go into HDR standard mode, avoid filmmaker mode if brightness is your thing. It's just not good. Okay, so let's put the U8H in standard,
Ooh, yep.
and
Close it.
ooh, yeah, it's like it's very bright. So if you go into HDR standard mode, and let me see if I can make the color a bit warmer because it's probably too cool.
Oh, hold on, I got Classy calling me. Hold up.
Okay, that's a little bit better. Active contrast does absolutely nothing on this one. Dynamic tone mapping, yeah, turn that off. Doesn't do anything either. Okay. Oh, well, it's a touch brighter, very similar. And you know what? Let's give the TCL some love. Give it some standard modes so you guys can see what all the standard modes look like. It's in movie
All right,
mode.
quickly. We have confirmation that is not the installer. That is a. Oh, there's another. The real one is in the house, dude. It's like comic book freaking
What?
game. So that Be the installer is not the real Be the installer. We have
The
and
fake
then
the
I had to be
installer? Fake
yeah,
beauty installer?
and then B said, "Yo, that fool ain't me." All right, we got trolls in the house. What's up, crew? Jesus, who takes the time to
All we need
make
is
these
a fake.
accounts? You gotta be
All we need is a
kidding me.
fake green frog.
Oh my god, dude.
I
At least he
think
was. I was,
sports.
and I thought Brandon was chilling with us too. Yo, that fool ain't me.
I'm
Hey,
trying to
boy.
see.
Brandon said. Well, Brandon, I can't see your picture on FOMO software here. It's just the text. I look on.
So all the TVs are in their weird standard mode. On the TCL, it's sports mode. That's their version of standard mode. They only have movie or sports. And on both the U7K and the U8H, they're both in HDR standard. I tried to get the colors to match somewhat, but I have to say the U7K is keeping up. It is not brighter. It is possibly a touch less bright if you pull out the meter, but specular highlights are there. So the U8H though, you lose specular highlights. The gradients are gone, whereas the U7K preserves it, and that's because I have it on weird enhancements on the U8K. So I'll pause right here.
All right, quickly
So
before we go into that, Balthorpe
yes,
Payne said palette swap be the installer like Mortal Kombat. It's like Lizard. Was it Lizard with the green? All
lizard.
right, go back to business. I apologize.
No, it's okay. So with the enhancements on the U7K, I mean, look at the brightness, right? U8K, U8H, maybe a touch brighter than specular highlights right here, but not night and day. And it's keeping up the QM8. So if you have the right settings on the U7K, you get very close for sure. There's no doubt about it. And
Okay.
they're both in their HDR standard, U8H and U7K. So I have to hand it to Hisense that they actually pushed the performance of the U7K, which begs the question, how much better is the U8K? And
Should
that
be
one
quite a
we will
bit
see.
better, I would say.
Yeah.
Are you gonna have the U7K at the same time as the U8K?
Yes, the U8K is coming in 2 weeks, so I'll hold on to this. Oh, hey, this is a good time to tell them where we're going to be next month.
Oh yes.
Yeah, yes. So I'll keep, you know what? I'll just play this and then. So next
Cool.
month, Brian and I will be in Kansas City at the Midwest AV Experience. We'll be doing all the TV demos. We're going to have a lot of fun with doing TV demos and stuff. We're going to show off what all the TVs are capable of, and we are going to go all the different settings. We're going to have 8 TVs. We're going to have the Samsung QD OLED S90C. We're going to have the LG W OLEDs. We're going to have these, the U7K and the U8K, as well as the QM8 and Q7, as well as the LG OLEDs as well, right? So at least 6 to 8 TVs. We'll be playing with the settings in different lighting environments so you guys can get a feel. What do these TVs do in real content? And then Brian's going to
Absolutely.
have fun, right? We're going to have
Oh,
gaming consoles. We're going to play with that. And we're going to play with audio, turn audio up, turn audio down, because some of you do not want to buy a sound bar. But I have to say, I'm pretty impressed with the $850 TV relative to what
I
we
am.
have.
I
Yeah,
am too. When you put it in the proper context of what it's still, especially the blooming control, I think is pretty
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Agreed.
Balthor Payne has got a super chat up for you.
Thank you. Let's see. In the market for TVs, and QM8 is one good nap away from what the hell purchase, wishing for a review soon. So the QM8, I have it, and my review right now is, I'll tell you, it is an amazing TV in the sense that it's got 1,300 dimming zones. It's the same number of dimming zones basically as the Hisense QN95C, and it's as bright as the 95C. It's actually specular highlights, arguably a touch brighter. And there are many things it does that I think are better than the Q95C. So we're not talking gaming, we're talking just HDR content. The QM8 is a very good TV. It's phenomenal. And that's why I'm comparing it to the U7K. Clearly, it has more headroom than U7K. For the U7K to get close, and this squirrel is great, I'm gonna just have to pause. It's you're losing a lot of some of this detail. You know what? I have to put the TCL back in a more accurate mode. I just can't stand. It's just way too cool. Like no, the QM8 is a great TV, but don't buy it until you see the U8K, because the
Yeah.
U8K is going to be it's going to cost similar.
Yep.
And yes, sports mode. Let's put it here. Okay. Oh, look at that.
And FOMO, we have a question too about is the QM8 crushing blacks? So I would say the best shot for that is the owl's eye to see if you
Yes,
see the pupils on a mini LED. So we'll get to that when it comes up. You'll be able to see the pupils on mini LEDs versus OLEDs. The owl's eye.
the owls. So what is it? Crushing. What's the question?
If it's crushing
Crushing.
any detail, as far as
Uh,
black crush, because TCL and Hisense
you
have had
know
a
what?
habit of doing that.
We have a scene here that has a lot of black detail, and let's go straight to that as well, because this one is the canyon scene where it has different gradients. But oh, by the way, let's just go through this blooming control so you guys can see how good it is.
Awesome, Christian. We'll see you at Kansas City. We got dope Christian Kashinsky will be there.
All right.
Shinsky, awesome, man. Make sure you come up to us. FOMO's the big guy.
As you can see, Blooming control is pretty good. Like all three TVs. And this only
Oh,
has
high def
304
news.
dimming zones. This is very impressive for this
High
scene,
def news. What's up, my man? What's up, Truth X?
right? Okay, I'll show you guys some
Damn,
black
QM8 looks good
crushing.
too.
Oh, the QM8's great. It's right now it's in the lead for the mini LED TV of the year, especially for the price. It's currently 1200 something, right?
Jesus. What's that max at 75? They have an 80. They have an 85.
It's 65, 75, and 85. They do not have a 55.
Why would you skip 55 in that price? Okay.
Okay, so this next one with the canyon, right? Or rather, the waves. The rocks and the waves, the details are often crushed out. And so I'm gonna overexpose so you guys can see the detail. And you guys can see the level of blacks and shadow and you can tell if it's crushed or not. So as you can see, right, the darkest areas of this scene, the U7K matches the QM8 and the U8H. The QM8 has the most dimming zones. It should have the most accurate blacks and shadow detail, and yet the U7K keeps up in the shadow detail in this scene. It actually does possibly, arguably, a better job than the U8H even. So this is impressive for having so few zones, and this is 10,000 nit content, guys. So this is actually very good. I am very impressed with this processing so far on the U7K. With this black level, very impressed. And we're gonna go to another scene that has great black levels as well, or
Now,
great
FOMO,
shadow detail.
Hisense does their own SOCs, correct?
No, they actually use a third party. Hisense doesn't make any chips themselves. They actually get chips from, like, well, some chips they do themselves, but in this case, I believe they probably do use a MediaTek type chip.
Okay, I thought that one of them mentioned that they had their own SOCs.
Well, for
Christian,
gaming,
are you gonna? I will check the 900C when it comes out in 98. When Robert gets it, Christian.
this is a great black level scene right here. So as you can see, they don't crush the blacks, although the bottom is slightly lifted, right? So I'm going to take this off real quick. Okay, pause right there. You could argue that the bottom of the trees and the bottom of the screen is slightly lifted on the U7K, but it's not crushing blacks. Let me turn up the exposure a bit more.
And local dimming, we're still at the same level.
The local dimming doesn't work. It's always on high. You can't really lower it. So as I turn up the
Come
exposure,
on.
it's slightly, the darks are slightly lifted, but it's not black crushing. But I had to turn up the exposure. You're not going to see this lifted black even in a dimly lit room. That's how good this black level is on U7K. So this goes to Sony's argument, right? Oh, you can see me in the reflection because exposure is so high. This goes to Sony's argument that software is everything. In this case, the U7K software with 384 is a near match for the QM8 with 3 times more dimming zones. What are your thoughts on that, Brian?
Well, quickly though, Fong, before we move on to that, if you look at the back to that scene real
Oh,
quick, can you go
back
back?
to that scene? Okay, wait one
Yep.
second.
With the high exposure, quickly,
Oh,
right
that one,
there,
right?
you can actually see the haloing on the right side, right there. You can actually
Okay.
see what looks like edgelit bleed, which it's not there, but you can't see that on the others. You guys see the
Yes.
faded on the bottom?
Yeah. Let me
That's
take
where you're
this.
probably seeing the limitations of the algorithm.
Yeah. So, yep. And that's the thing is, you only have 384 zones. They're doing a phenomenal job. And remember, my exposure is up. If I take it down to what would normally
Yeah.
be what you're seeing in
Yep.
a light-controlled room, okay, this is what you're going to see. You cannot see that level of black
Nope.
level differences, right? You're just not going to.
Nope.
So again, this is the budget crowd, right? You want that bare minimum TV for $850. I think you have it with a U7K. Now, does the Q7 do as well is the question. So what I'm going to do is we're going to be at the M Wave in Kansas City, and we can check that out ourselves, right?
Yeah. We're gonna definitely. But yeah,
So
messing with these TVs in person is definitely fun, man. I mean, the kind of content you're bringing right now, though. I mean, who else is doing these three TVs compared to each
oh,
other? Nobody.
this is another great one right here for black crushing. So the trees actually have shadow detail in the trees. So I turn up the exposure, you'll see the shadow detail.
Are you in Dolby Vision?
No, I could,
'Cause
but
the
I
U
do not have a three-way Dolby Vision here with me. I
No, but
do have a three-way Dolby Vision at
I'm just saying that because the U7K keeps putting up a Dolby Vision banner. Is
oh
it
Dolby
possibly in Dolby?
Atmos. It's Dolby
Oh, is that
Atmos.
Atmos?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. I was like, that's why the local dimming's not doing anything.
Okay,
They're like,
so once again, look at the black levels on this. Not crushed, right? They're identical, near identical. The deepest blacks are on the QM8, but the U8H and the U7K, black levels are very similar. Shadow details very similar. Very good.
love it.
And we're gonna have real content. I had to remove Aquaman because I got flagged last time for Aquaman. They had to remove it for me. So I took out Aquaman from our movie comparison stream. So this is the specular highlights, right? And it
Well, the
looks,
QM8 looks great right there, though. The
oh yeah,
detail in the QM8 looks fantastic.
hmm well, that's why it's kind of like my choice. There we go. But
High def news.
the brightness on the U7K now, with the right settings, has caught up. And I'll just have to now the subtleties
Just
of
loses
this
the
scene.
detail.
Okay, the subtlety of this scene, the QM8, hands down, is the best. The tone mapping on the U8H can't keep up, and U7K, it's clipping the detail, not on the, here we go, QM8. So if I lower the exposure so you guys can see more of that detail, you see that subtlety in the QM8, you see the gradient of color from the brightest area to
Yeah.
the less bright. There's a very smooth gradient that should be there. And this is what I see in QD OLED. The U7K and the U8H, it's over brightened. Now, let me double check the U8H is in its most accurate mode. I know you guys have me play with it. I don't want to say the U8H is any worse if I don't have its best settings on. Make sure all this stuff is turned off. Yep, so U8H, that is. And I'm not going to turn off the enhancements on the U7K because you guys know it'd just be too dim. This is just the way it should. But this is 10,000 nit content, right? If I go down, if it's 2,000 nit and then go back, you guys will see.
We got Travis Vania in the house with a super chat. What's up, Travis?
Oh, how is gaming on the QM8? Just pause right there. Okay, let's see here. We did, the question is gaming on the QM8. I haven't had a chance to test the gaming on the QM8 yet, Travis. I will once I get the U8K because I wanted to kind of do a three-way. Because we know the U8H gaming, you're going to lose resolution in the 4K 120 VRR. Hisense admitted as much. The processing was not up to snuff. In the off-season, they specifically addressed processing. U7K, U8K has the improved processors to do full 4K 120. So we'll be testing that to see if there's half resolution versus the QM8, and the QM8 doesn't have that problem. So we'll see, but most importantly, does it affect local dimming when you have it at 4K 120? Because oftentimes that's a big issue with LCD TVs. But let me ask you, Brian, did you see a drop in local dimming performance as far as raised blacks when you were doing your gaming comparison with the Sony and the Samsung Q95C?
Well, on the X95 L, the local dimming worked. It just you couldn't get it quite as deep. The Q95C did not seem raised at all. But they went to great lengths. They both have that black raise if you want to see things they use it for. As long as you lower that shadow detail down, they both have pretty decent blacks. Not compared to an OLED, but they've definitely come a long way from the last couple of years where it didn't do anything. So I'd be
Ah,
quite curious to see how TCL actually does it.
all right. I'm going to switch over to movie content now, what you guys all been waiting for, but I'm leaving at the end just in case I get hit. And I think I need to add commentary throughout this in order to ensure. So as you can see in the menu, the U7K the menu is not as bright.
And for most of you
Let's,
guys know that the menus, a lot of times the TV's local dimming disables, or you won't see it until content.
exactly.
Um, really, and quickly, we have Lisa has a super chat. Quickly, our good friend Lisa.
Oh, you're welcome, Lisa. Let me throw that up there. Thank you for being here. All right, let's
Thank
run
you,
this.
Lisa. I really appreciate it.
We
Um,
do. We do. And don't forget to
And
watch our live stream in Kansas City. We're gonna
we're
have
gonna do a
fun.
stream before that, right? We'll do a stream probably a
Oh
week
yeah,
before that. Yeah,
yeah.
we'll
We're gonna
pop
do a
up.
stream next week and talk about that.
Well, you'll see us in person do it like we do with the shootout, which will be great because we'll be doing the
Mhm.
shootout this year as well. So it'll be really good to enjoy it. And now I guess we're gonna see here, FOMO, if that dynamic contrast does affect the image
Yes.
quality.
So this is that Grunwald,
Yep.
and it looks pretty good. Again, the setting
Yeah.
on the U7K is HDR standard with contrast enhancement on. I'm gonna pause here real quick. With contrast enhancement on it and dynamic tone mapping on, so I can get those specular highlights.
Hmm.
All right. I'm pausing randomly, and it looks pretty good, right?
Yep.
And
Well, this is
remember,
pretty high end picture. We get to something with more faces, we'll be able to see if it changes
the
the
skin,
noise.
and
Yeah.
it's not calibrated either. The U7K, what the U8H is.
How's the motion look, FOMO?
Oh, motion looks fine. It's in film motion, so they have a setting called film. I put it in film. I don't see any obvious stutter. But then again, oh wait, I think I may have saw some banding. I'll pause it next time. So specular highlights with the flames look good.
The tone mapping is interesting though. It lights up everything.
Oh, here's a great black bars. Okay, so the black bars on the U7K, I gotta show this because you and I are big fans of black bars, right? As you can
Yeah, I never knew
see.
how important it would be in my life.
I know, right? All right, so the black bar on the U7K, there's a weakness. Now, it's on high, the local dimming is on high. Normally on high, it gets rid of the black bars. In this case, the U8H and so the QM8 has the deepest black bars. Look at that, right? Let me turn
The
up.
image does not look good on the QM8 in the shot though.
The QM8's not calibrated either, but let me see.
Is it
So look how
is
black.
it a movie mode? What mode is the QM8 in now?
Oh, you're right. Let me see. I think it's in movie mode. Changed it so many times. Movie. Let's see what options. Movie mode. Yep. And brightness 100. Advanced settings. Yeah. All that stuff is off. Local control. That's the dimming zone. That's on high. That's why you have the great black bars. And I'll just leave it on warm. It looks closest.
How we
Okay.
look off angle? We look pretty good on
Off
oled.
angle. You know what?
Ooh, you can see the black bars now on the U7K. Holy crap!
Yeah.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Those are the good old day 2016 black bars right there. That's some KS8000 black bars.
Oh, darn it. I tried to pause and I stopped. Let me try this again. Sorry, folks.
You a new player? Oh no, you're kaleidoscope right now, right?
Yeah, the Kaleidoscape doesn't have the same level of control as my UB20, but as you guys know, if you saw the last live stream, it died in the middle of the live stream. It's currently in repairs by Geek Squad / Panasonic. So, all right. Okay, here we go. Greatest Showman. I'm going to pause right here. Oh,
Hit like for me, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with FOMO and I.
okay. Specular highlights, excellent.
Got some decent depth there too. The
I mean, look
colors
at
are
that
nice.
specular highlight. It's a match. So basically, if you're watching HDR movies, the U7K specular highlights is right there with the best of them. The U8H is calibrated to the specular highlights, so they are the U7K is accurate to that specular highlight, but you guys saw the black bars. It's slightly noticeable. But again, it's what you pay for.
Don't slander the KS8000.
Yeah, right.
My friend, I had the KS9000. Believe me, I know. Because KS8000 was great, but keep in mind
And
what the blooming was for those TVs.
there's one scene that's colorful. I will go to off angle so you guys can see how it color shifts off angle. Actually, let's do it right here. Okay, Brian, if you can keep our friends company, let me do an
Of
off
course.
angle real quick.
Of
Oh
course.
no, I think
I
my
had a
cable's
question
too
about.
short. No, the cable's too short. I don't have my long HDMI cable.
Oh man.
Actually, you know, I do.
We'll have to just take your word for it.
Actually, I do. Keep on talking.
All right. So, high def had a question of when am I getting a QN95C? The one you see in the videos is mine, so it's just still at the store. I'll be in the UK tomorrow. If any of you guys are in the UK, then I'll be traveling to Kansas City, so I probably won't bring it home until the end of July. So there's no rush for me to have it at home. I don't have, in case you guys didn't know, a lot of us that are content creators don't really have time to actually enjoy content. So it's no real rush for me to get it. I think I'll be
Just,
also getting the ultra wide Samsung QD OLED. I'll be trying that one too.
you guys often ask me what kind of cables I use. I forgot. RuiPro just sent me this 15-meter optical gaming cable. It's 8K and it's long. It's 15 meters, and I only use optical cables. And I've been using my RuiPro since they sent me one 4 years ago, and it's still working. This is their updated one, so I'll use this one real quick. I'm a
Nice.
big fan of RuiPro.
So Poco Pio, I love this question. Should I buy now or until Black Friday? I see the QM8 is 500 less. I would always say for you, even if it's a $500 price difference, if you add that up over the amount of time you're going to not waste, I shouldn't say that, but if you could enjoy the TV today versus waiting till November, you have to judge if that's worth it to you. I rather pay the extra 500 and have the TV now and enjoy all
Well,
my games than save
that's
a couple hundred
also,
bucks.
you know, that's a great point, Brian. I forgot to mention real quick.
Talk to me.
TCL, they have already hit their discounts. By Prime Day, the discount will be near max. So I wouldn't bother waiting too
Okay.
long
Yeah.
because, as you saw, it already dropped significantly. And right now, let's say, what's it, 2200, 2300? By Black Friday, at most, 2100. It's not going to drop under 2000.
Yeah.
So if you're waiting for it to drop under 2000, you're going to have to wait until next year at best. At best, it may
And
not. So yeah.
and I mean, and FOMO, what do you think? I mean, we talk about budget. If it's something that you can't quite afford and you're reaching, then I understand. But if it's only saving a few $100, and I'm not belittling that, but in comparison to you enjoying the content for 6 months, I would easily say enjoy your, um he just said, "You just ring the bell, guys. I'm going to get it right now, bro.
White knuckling
We're
it.
selling TVs on a stream." Hashtag.
Oh, I love
See?
it. Doing God's work, my
Yep.
friends.
So do me a favor, next live stream that FOMO and I are on, we'll do another one before Kansas City. Please follow up Poco and let me know how you're liking it. But for all you guys in the comments that are looking to buy, when it comes to Black Friday or Prime Day, yes, when you see like Samsung's drop $600 or $700, I understand waiting because they do, especially the 8K lineup. But with these brands, if it's a couple $100 and you guys can swing it, I rather enjoy my TV for 3, 4, 5 months than save that few extra $100. You know what I mean? So to me, I don't know what your theory is on that FOMO, but I think for me, it's about enjoying what you have versus waiting a year to save 400 bucks.
For sure, if it's a Samsung, I'd wait until September. They
Hell yeah.
aggressively drop their prices. If it's Sony, man, you gotta wait until next year. So Sony is always in a tough spot. You know that, Brian, right?
So
Don't.
Sony. So if we talk about
Yeah.
Sony real quick, I was in Best Buy, and the A95K cost as much at 65 as like an 85-inch QN85. So because they released so late in the year, especially the Master Series, the A95L, as amazing as it's going to be, is going to be at that price point well after the S95C's successor arrives. Same with the G4 or whatever is going to come out. So that's the problem with Sony is you are waiting. It's why the X90 is such a popular TV is because it does change prices pretty rapidly. But for the most part, you are paying top dollar for a long time. But as far as these brands, I really wouldn't wait too long. I would really enjoy it.
Yep, agreed.
So Terry, you are going to see the Z9K on my channel. Everybody is going to go against the S95C. The Z9K will be 85 inches, and you'll be surprised. It's the first TV I've seen actually handle the S95C pretty
All
handily, but
right.
it's also 4,000 nits. So
Okay, I'm gonna start walking now.
the Blair Witch Project right here. Boy,
All right, we are about, I don't know, more than 45 degrees off angle here. So,
Oh, Danny said, I feel like Michael Gibbs' last stream. I ordered the QM8 and I'm behind on watching the stream.
Michael is setting the tone for this.
Oh, Michael Grubbs. I ended up canceling my order after early. Michael Grubbs is in. Dude, you didn't get the TV? After all that, he didn't get the TV.
So the QM8 preserves
What?
color saturation a little bit better than the U7K. The U7K preserves it a little bit better than the U8H. So that's interesting. So U7K has better color saturation off angle. The QM8 has the best one off angle. And we go to the other side.
Oh, did you hear what I said, FOMO? Michael Gibbs
Oh,
actually did not, Grubbs did not buy the QM8 on that stream. He
oh,
backed
he
out.
did not?
He didn't. Nope. You were the star of that stream, my friend. All right. So he's still hunting for a TV.
Okay.
You were the life of the
Now,
party, though.
keep in mind that the U7K is in HDR standard, and that possibly could be why it's slightly more saturated. But overall, the QM8 does have the best saturation, and the U7K off angle is second best, and U8H is just barely behind that. But that's off angle. Most people are not that extreme off angle. So,
Well, you're pretty impressed. I mean, so still off angle, you're pretty impressed.
no, off angle, it is slightly washed out. I'm impressed that the QM8 is as good as it is, actually, because the QM8 actually is pretty good. I'm impressed
All
with
right,
the
Michael,
QM8.
run out and buy that, baby. Michael Grubbs ordering again. Let's do it.
He's reordering it.
2-day shipping, baby.
All right, so let's continue this. Let me play this. Oh, here it is.
All right, guys, we got 260 in the chat. Please take a second and hit that like button for my boy FOMO. Works really hard at this. This is a tremendous amount of work. I'm just hanging out.
It looks
So
pretty
please
close,
consider
though, right? Other than the black bars, and to be honest, I barely noticed a black bar. It's there.
Michael.
Specular highlights is pretty good. What do you think, Brian? Actually,
I mean, I think it looks pretty good, man. I mean, it's as far we have to wait till the jewelry scene comes up. Did you put that one up yet?
Yep, this is it.
Oh, okay.
Here's a close up, right?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, with her hat. Okay.
Yeah.
You missing that Panasonic, baby? You missing that Panasonic?
Oh, okay. Wow, the U7K is the brightest. The
that
U7K
is incredible.
has the brightest specular highlight, or at worst, it's a match for the QM8. That's pretty impressive. Bravo! Wow, that's so. The
now,
U8H,
you think when the local dimming gets
fixed,
updated, maybe it'll improve?
It's possible. And again, what do we say? Don't buy it on the assumption they'll fix the local dimming. The black bars is the only issue here. If they fix local dimming, it's most likely to address the black bars, because other than that, it's doing a phenomenal job with this local dimming.
Yeah, with dead center, the black bars are still pretty good, though. That's really,
Yeah.
Let's go watch TV in the kitchen.
True.
Michael Grubbs, man, I can't believe my boy pulled out. Damn. All right, man. Chicken. Chicken.
Oh, the brightness.
Come on, Michael. All the cool kids are doing it.
Look at this APL. The average picture level is excellent. This is a very bright scene.
I love Keanu. He's got to trim up that beard, though, man. Damn. Edge it up or something.
There you go.
Oof.
Yeah. It's pretty bright.
Damn. It's like somebody at Hisense is unlocking it as we go.
I think so.
Michael said, "Buck, buck, buck, buck." Call them chicken. Come on, Michael. Come on, man. Drop that money, baby. We have a super chat from our boy Getty G-Man. What's up, G-Man?
Hey, great stream. Can't wait for the U8K versus U8H versus QM8. So I have to be honest, seeing the U7K keep up, I expect the U8K to really be a step up. Possibly, I guess on my part, better than the QM8, but the QM8 is good though. I mean, as you guys are seeing. Oh, let me turn up the exposure a bit.
Awesome. Getty G, man. Hope all is well, my friend. Also, our boy Plasma for TV Gaming is in the house, has a great channel. Check him out. Please, FOMO, can you test the motion at 120 FPS with UFO test at 480 PPS? The QM8 should obliterate the competition when using max motion settings with black light
Oh,
manipulation.
do I need a PC for that? Do I need, I
No,
can't just
right, I
plug
think
in a
you mean,
PS5.
isn't that, I don't know. You talking about, is the Spears of Munsell have that test on it?
No, no, no. It's that Blur Buster one. I think you have to run it off a PC. The Spears and Munsell, their disc does not do 120, so you're not having
Okay.
a 120 frame per second. Oh, not that
I
I
love
know
that
of.
shot. That shot's great with the freaking chain.
Oh yeah, and the brightness is great too. The brightness
Yeah,
is
guys,
a great.
check out our boy Plasma TV for gaming. Boy's rocking some plasma, actual plasma stuff right now. Right there.
So look at the
Boss.
brightness right there.
Ah,
Oh,
ah, ah, ah. Oh, right. What a good movie, man. Damn.
the brightness is excellent. I'm gonna try to
Well, I
pause it.
think what's important is you're noticing that brightness FOMO in real right there. Boom. The real content is
Oh,
where you're seeing the
nailed it.
brightness. That's the beautiful thing, everybody, is
Okay,
that
so
we
let's look
see
at the
this in movies.
contrast here. This is a great one. The contrast separation on the U8H and the QM8 is better than the U7K. You see that contrast separation, Brian?
Yeah.
Let me adjust this a little bit.
So what's great about this stream for us doing a few hours of this is you're seeing us either start off disappointed and then warming up, or vice versa. And I think this is one of those situations, FOMO, where we're warming up to it,
Oh
um,
yeah, because I
putting
had
it
to
through its
change the
paces.
settings, right? We had to play with the settings. And this is what we do as reviewers. We have to get it to the best setting because sometimes filmmaker is not always the best setting because the TV makers may not be doing it right. And here, I just love that you see the price separation between the QM8 and the U7K. That cloud, that bright area that we all love, you can see that depth on the QM8 that's not in the U7K, but it's in the U8H. And this could be the number of dimming zones coming into play. There's only so much you could do with software, right? Oh, Michael
Oh
Grubbs
my!
is back.
Take your
All
time,
right,
read my boy Michael. All right.
all right. Let's see. What do you got to say here,
So
buddy?
let's get the context. Michael Grubbs was the star of our last stream. Michael, I think, spent a fortune on that stream, wanting to buy the QM8. So we thought we put him in a good place, and that Michael was gonna let us know how much he loved it. Now Michael's showing up at the end of the game to let us know that he didn't buy it, and now here he is.
Here
Michael,
he is. All
you
right.
have the
So
floor.
thanks for the stream again. Leaning towards the X90L or a discounted X90K after seeing Classy's calibration review. Just like
What?
nothing with what I'm reading about the QM8. Okay, so
Michael, you cannot go to an
I,
X90K from a
I,
QM8.
I will tell you, you will be, if you own the
Devastated.
QM8, and I understand it has its issues, once you own the QM8 and you get something like what you're seeing right here, you're going to see an obvious difference with the X90L. Yes, the X90L will have better color out of the box. I mean, all those things. But you will not get that level of brightness pop from the X90L. There is no way.
Well, not to mention,
It's
FOMO,
just
X90K,
stellar.
I'm the biggest
80
fan of those
zones?
TVs. Yeah,
Yeah.
the X90K, I'm a big fan of the X90K.
Mhm.
You can't put it against the QM8.
No, you cannot get this level of dynamic range. And this is what we're talking about, is that dynamic range between the brightest cloud and the darkest part. On the X90L, it will be more like the U7K or even more two-dimensional, right? A little bit flatter is how we describe it because dynamic range is kind of compressed a little bit. So this is really preference
Well,
because
FOMO,
some people don't watch HDR. If you only watch SDR, then it doesn't matter.
you know what Michael's doing? Michael was swimming into the middle of the pool towards TCL, and now he's swimming back to the wall towards Sony. You know what I'm saying? You're going back to the wall, bro. You're like, hold on.
Yeah.
Michael, man, come on. He spent another $5. Mike, don't spend your money here. That's why you're going back to an X90K. Super chat from Michael Grubbs, FOMO.
He's like, no, no, you don't understand what I'm trying to
Don't
tell you.
spend your money here, bro. I mean, go ahead. But
Well,
you might as well hit him up.
he could be buying the QM8 now, right? All right, so Michael, even if 90% of my viewing is native apps like YouTube TV and Netflix. And so, okay, so actually, you know what? Okay, there is no, so native apps is a mixed bag. And this is something that everyone talks about. TV native apps compared to a dedicated streamer, a Roku stick, a Prime, the Prime stick, I guess, I don't know what it's called, or the Apple TV, those
Yeah,
will
you're
give
watching a
you
potato.
better apps. The native apps on a Sony, on a TCL, on whatever. Now, because they all have Google TV, then the assumption is the Google TV version is all the same across the board, right?
Yes.
So if you assume they're all the same across the board, the QM8 is a Google TV. It should be the same as the Sony Google TV as well. So that native app should be the same. The question is processing of that native app. If you have low bitrate content, can the QM8 do the processing well? And I think this is where Michael Grubbs is saying is, I don't even watch that much HDR because YouTube TV, forget HDR. It really is SDR, sports, brightness, whatever,
Yeah.
right? And so if that's what your content, yeah, the X90L really is a great SDR TV. There's no doubt about it. Probably better than anyone else because of its the way it's upscaling. And then you get that new XR clear, right? The X90L has the XR clear. So
Yes.
you'll benefit from that if your bitrate, the connection, your internet connection is not great sometimes. The Sony should do a better job, right? So I see where you're going with that. That makes sense, Michael. So yeah, I got
But
you.
Mike,
I got you.
Michael. Let's get back on the couch real quick. Won't lower your standards to just YouTube TV. I mean, Netflix content can look very good. You can see the HDR impact, but like, yeah, YouTube TV, I get it. Upscaling, I love the upscaling of Sony. Don't get me wrong, but at a lot of times, don't make your purchase based just on that. I mean, if that's all you watch, but the TCL QM8 is an excellent TV, and I think the X90L is going to be excellent as well. But I can't recommend you go back to the X90K, even though I like that TV. This is a new technology. Keep that
Te-
the blacks. It's what I'm saying.
I just like to pause here because this is a great scene for APL, brightness, and all that. U7K is right there. This is already, I can tell, a great SDR brightness TV. The fact that it can match this bright APL scene with the other TVs and preserve some specular highlights in the bright scene, very good. Now, the contrast is not quite as deep as the other two, but then again, it's not calibrated, right? So it's out of the box. This is excellent. I mean, the color is very similar. The white balance is very close to the U8H. QM8 is also not calibrated. I'll get that calibrated thanks to Sammy Prescott later this month. So we'll see. But I have to say, well, what do you think, Brian,
I
so
mean,
far?
I've gotten very impressed with it. Once we get out of that filmmaker mode, it's been turning back. I imagine they'll address the filmmaker mode, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty happy with it, especially if you keep adding the value.
Right.
In some scenes like this, it looks deeper. That scene there, it looked deeper than the others.
Yeah. Yeah, like this one right here. It looks indistinguishable. Hey, Travis, thank you for the super chat. I'm so excited for Mini LED this year. QM8, U8K, the UX. That's Hisense's top of
Excuse
the
me
line.
one second.
Yeah. So just if you guys don't know, the Hisense UX only comes in 85-inch. It has over 5,000 dimming zones. It is the only 85-inch TV you can get this year with over 5,000 dimming zones. Both the TCL QM8 and the Samsung QN900 and the QN95, they're around just over 2,000. So it has twice as many dimming zones. So we're all excited to see how well the UX does. And then the Q95C. And the new Sharp TV, yes, I'm hoping to review that TV. Have you heard anything about the Sharp? The Sharp for the 65-inch is also over 1,000 dimming zones. It is at the same hardware spec as the QM8. Exactly how many dimming zones? Is it 1,300? Is it 1,200? Remains to be seen, but it is over 1,000, very much like the QM8, the U8K, and the Q95C. But like the Sony though, it should have the processing down. So maybe if the price is right, Michael will be getting a Sharp 85. Oh wait, it doesn't come in 85-inch. It only comes in 75. Oh well. Sorry about that, Michael. Close enough, right? But yes, so many choices. Thanks again for that super chat. But I have to say, for $850, this is the reminder. For $850, this U7K in the right setting, HDR standard, looks pretty good with dynamic tone mapping on and contrast enhancer on max, because look at the brightness of the scene, right? Its APL is the same, if not slightly brighter. So this is the U7K, the mini LED. There is something to be said about getting the TV bright. And this is where we have the brightest of the HDR test scenes that many people have been using forever. So in this scene, I'm going to pause it in the brightest area so you guys can see. Boom, right there. You know what? Let's go a little bit further. Okay. And the difference in the contrast and the clipping is actually pretty amazing. So let me lower the exposure a little bit so you guys can see. Many people will say, what's the point of getting detail in a bright scene? You don't even notice it. But I'm doing this so you guys can see the tone mapping and the differences. So the U8H has all the details there. In the sunset, right? The U7K is clipping some of that, and you lose a little bit of contrast. The brightness is there, but the fine detail of the sun is not there. But strangely enough, the QM8 is similar to the U7K. So here, and again, I'm going to have to adjust the contrast on, I'll adjust the contrast on the U7K, because it's possible the contrast will help, because I know on the Samsung, you do the slight contrast change, and it does help. Oops, not the
I'm back. I
brightness.
apologize.
Hey, hey, I know you're
That's all
getting
right.
ready to go out on your vacation, right?
Yeah. Well, is anybody here from the UK? Or are you guys all sleeping in the UK? I'll be in the
Nah,
UK tomorrow night.
yeah, it doesn't add anything to it. Yeah,
High Def
speed
News.
up.
What's up, my friend? Thanks for all you do on Twitter, buddy.
Okay, let's see, contrast helps. Oops, wrong one. The remotes are identical, by the way. The U7K and U8H remotes are the same. I'm wondering if the remote will be the same for the the U8H and the U7K remotes are the same. All right, let's see. Contrast. Nah, it makes a slight difference. Yeah, at 54, 53, but it just doesn't have the contrast of the U8H. So it's obvious that the U8H with more dimming zones has better brightness, contrast, dynamic range. I think there's only so much you can do with processing. But this sun is as bright, almost as bright, it's just not as clear. U8H wins this one for sure in my book. There. So now let me ask you, Brian, you see how they're all very similar in brightness, but then the U8H has that extra detail and the U7K does not. And the QM8 actually falls a little bit behind in that detail as well, just a little bit. Is that important to you, Brian? Because this scene, if I just play it, it's very it's very brief. I mean, it just goes boom and it's gone, right? And you'll watch the scene again. Look at those differences and tell me if that makes a difference in the content watching for you.
It does, but then I'm contradicting myself because like the X95L has that little bit of detail, but it's not quite as
Mm-hmm.
bright. And the QN95C is a lot brighter actually, or 300 or 400 nits brighter. And I'll give up some of that detail. But the HDR impact has to overpower that loss of detail. And
Mm,
that's where I would make the compromise. The detail is important, but if it's as long as it's not blasting the screen, um, it's still kind of important here. Oh, here we go. That's a great scene.
yeah. I'm just going to pause. And the shadow detail, so I'll turn up the exposure, you guys can see the shadow detail a bit more.
So U8H was known to crush a little bit, always,
If
right?
you, okay,
Kinda?
if you calibrate it, it isn't. It has great shadow detail if it's calibrated. So let me turn it up a bit more. Okay, here we go. And okay, so this is a great scene. The U7K, I don't even know if there's any detail there, but it's not really, I'm looking for black crushing, but I think it's a dark scene anyway. Yeah, there's no, I don't see any black crushing. Let me turn this down a little bit, see if there's any color banding. And there's a touch of color banding on, so I see an improvement in processing. The U8H has a touch of color banding that the U7K does not have and the QM8 does not have. You see the color banding on the U8H, Brian? Let me turn up
Does the
exposure.
does the U7K not have it because it's blowing out the detail, or is it where is it in the flame?
It's in the
Oh,
flame,
okay.
right? You see it now? You
Yep.
see how smooth that is? Actually, it's as smooth as a QM8. Now, there's black bars. You can see that. So there is no perfect TV. The U7K is a step up in processing right here. I can see the fact that the color banding is so clear to me. Now, I'm seeing it on my monitor. How about YouTube? Are you able to see that, Brian?
It's not that clear on YouTube as far as that difference.
Okay, let me see if I can turn it a little bit more.
Real quick, Tim Bush, is the X95L going to be that much better than these TVs at the price at the price point does it make to wait for the A95L? Well, Tim, if you're in the market for an 85-inch TV, the X95L is really the only game in town. And I think you were saying you're going to combine that with the HTA9. That's a pretty damn good combination. HTA9 is a couple $1,000s. But I was very impressed with the X95L. I think the processing still puts it ahead of these. Um, you're just going to pay a bit more for it being brand new. I know it just dropped $500, but I think the X95L is worth it. But then again, I can't go for a 77-inch TV, so I think that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for that, Tim. But make sure you go
And
through Robert. Tell him you saw him on our channel or saw him on my channel
yeah,
because it's for the X95, and he'll put together a good price for you.
and so I think this is the best way. I mean, of the three, the U8H has the worst banding. I'm trying to change the exposure so you guys could see it. U8H has the most visible banding, and the U7K, surprisingly, is a match for the QM8. So this is pretty impressive. Now, look how fast this scene goes, though, Brian. Does this stuff, when it moves this fast, oh, yeah, you can actually notice it here. Yeah, the U7K has better processing. It's also not flashing as much. I'm impressed. Definitely, they upgraded their processor this year. So I'm going to let it run so you guys can see. Now, let me know in the comments below, by the end of this stream, I know at the beginning, they're like, what the hell happened to the U7K, right? But then as we get through this stream, with the right settings, it actually gets a little bit better. Actually, a lot better. Oh, here's a great one. Can you see the banding here, Brian?
Yep. A little vignetting around. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Okay.
Okay, there we go. So the QM8 and U7K have the better processor when it comes to color banding. And every year, TVs get a slightly better. So a lot of people are saying they're afraid that TCL and Hisense, the processing is not up to snuff. And you're right. Look at last year. The U8H in this scene, banding, this year's U7K, one tier lower, has actually addressed it. And of course, the QM8 is the flagship for TCL, also addressed it. And this is a difficult scene. To be fair, the G3 couldn't do this scene. The G3 has
Yeah.
banding. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
guys, the
we know that more.
G3 has banding in those scenes. Only the QD OLED, perfect, smooth gradients, right? Because this is a BT 2020 color space. And however the G3 and the C3 is processing the color space, you're getting a combination of flashing and banding, or pulsing, or chrominance overshoot. It's a combination of two different issues. Oh, here
Well,
we go. Okay.
Tim, you'll also see that be careful with Batman, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Let me
the
pause and talk about it, but go ahead.
the price difference with the X95 versus you're gonna see it very expensive. The A95L is gonna be very expensive at 77. You have a super chat from Michael.
All right. So I'm going to pause. Oh, here's a great bright scene to pause. So you guys could compare the brightness of the scene to see how the TVs render that brightness. And how crazy is this? The U7K matches the brightness of the other two TVs. And this is a really bright scene, by the way.
That's great, man.
Actually, it's a little bit brighter than the U8H even. So very impressive. All right, let me get to that super chat.
We have one from the Brookline Hero too.
Ooh.
So Brookline Hero was first, but then you got Michael.
Okay. All right. So Brookline Hero. Oh, here we go. I don't even know how to send this up. So, all right. So this is a pear super
So
sticker.
it's,
Thank you,
I thought it
Brookline
was a
Hero.
troll, but it's actually he's using that pear-shaped. It's
Pear-shaped
not.
workout warrior.
It's the workout warrior. I thought he was saying that I was working out, but he put up, keep it up. It's just a weightlifting thing. I thought he said the pear-shaped character. Was he talking about me? What the?
Brian, you haven't been working
Appreciate
out, man.
appreciate the super chat, Brookline Hero. Let us know if you have a comment that you want to add to that, my friend. And
Hey,
then you
Michael. Let's see. Follow it. When you have a huge number of dimming zones, don't you need a much better processor to handle it? Not necessarily a better processor, you just need better processor for any amount of dimming zones. If anything, if you have less dimming zones, you need to control those dimming zones to balance black levels with specular highlights. I mean, I think it's hard whether it's a lot of dimming zones or less. It's no dimming zones is the easiest, right? But any number of dimming zones. This is why Sony has a problem or had a problem in previous years. They didn't have enough dimming zones, but they keep on trying to tell us it's the software. Well, this year it actually is the software. It actually improved. So TCL and Hisense, they just go the easy route. They brute force and add enough dimming zones where their software is not as sophisticated. The dimming zones buys them time. Now that their software is getting better, and then you add that to the dimming zone, the performance becomes phenomenal.
Well, and we saw that with Vizio over the years, which was just throw a lot of zones and hope for the best. And Brookline had said, please get the 98-inch QM8.
Yes. Oh, 98. Yes, actually, I want to get the 98-inch QM8. I'm talking to TCL because I'm doing my friend's home renovation. We're doing their
Mm-hmm.
amazing home theater. And I'm debating between the Sony X90L and the QM8 because I've decided on getting the latest Sony AVR. So the flagship AVR from Sony, I like their
Oh,
AVRs
Sony.
because they're designed to last, right? And so the
Well, they
question
have
is
that immerse sound. What's the sound field? Their immersion technology is
yeah,
pretty cool.
the 360 audio. Yep, I'm a big
Yep.
fan of it, and they have the
Yep.
room correction, whatever. And it's it's plug and play. It's really simple. I'm a big fan of what they're doing on the audio side. But between the Sony X90L, which is 10,000, and the TCL QM8, which is also 10,000, I know what I'm going to get with the Sony, right? The QM8, I know I'm going to get flashes of brilliance, but are there compromises I don't know about? So that's something that I'll
Well,
have to decide.
well, I would say with that size from them, and that scene you were just in, FOMO, the eyes on Batman was much brighter on the U7K.
I thought it was
Um,
just me. You noticed that too? Okay, I'll
yeah, a lot
pause it.
brighter. That was right there. It looked the best. It looks the best in that shot, to be honest. You have more shadow detail. Um, Nothing's crushed. I would say it looks the best in that shot.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean it's
yeah.
and it's not an
And
easy
now
scene. It's a
remember,
very hard scene.
it's arguable the U7K. Remember, I have contrast enhancer on. Maybe it's raised,
Okay.
and the QM8
So
could be
you know
more
what? Why don't we
accurate.
shut that off real quick, FOMO? See what it does.
Oh
Because
yeah,
that's probably why you're seeing it. Maybe pop that
that
off and
is
see if
true.
it
Yeah, let me shut it off right now.
because if it really
So
flattens it out.
let's put it in filmmaker mode, like many of you will accidentally do because we tell you to do it. This is one time why I say do not put it in filmmaker mode.
I don't tell you to do it.
I know,
I don't
right?
ever say put it in filmmaker
It's
mode. Never.
local dimming high, active contrast off, dynamic tone mapping off. Okay. And as you can see, it is significantly dimmer. Well, I don't say
Oh,
significantly, but noticeably dimmer.
oh, Danny said after I don't have self control, so after the last stream, I have the 75-inch QM8 being delivered and running tomorrow. Nice, Danny. Danny, come on. Good for you,
Winner!
bro. Be impulsive. Danny, let us know how you like it. See, Michael, that's how you do it.
He's
I'm
going to
only kidding.
inspire Michael.
Michael's like, that's it. Super chat. I'm only kidding.
Right. Okay. So you can see in filmmaker mode with all the enhancements off, it simply cannot get as bright. And this is in a dark room. The impact isn't there, which is very strange to me because as you can see the headroom, right, in HDR standard, the brightness headroom is there. So, I mean, Brian, would you leave it in filmmaker mode or would you take it to what we did?
Hell no. I got a better chance of getting pregnant. I would never leave it in that mode. That's
HDR
cat pee
standard?
mode right there. Oh my god.
Yeah.
What film are we talking about? Going with the Wind?
Just putting it in standard.
Never.
Just
Yeah,
putting it
I
in
don't care
standard.
about filmmaker mode at all. I know the rest of you guys love it. That is horrendous.
And in
Put
this
it in that
movie,
stand.
it's arguable whether, I mean, the color accuracy isn't even that off, right?
Yeah, no, it looks good, man. But I can't be
It
doing
looks
that.
good.
That was
It's
horrendous.
yeah, the bright now it's slightly brighter than the other two TVs, right?
Yeah,
Which is
yeah.
kind of
Well, I
crazy.
mean, I would honestly think, FOMO, when you do these streams, you really should follow up with a settings video, because this is something people like, maybe day one settings video. I think you should do one, because I think people are going to be out of the box not really happy with it if they go right to filmmaker mode. So I think you got to do a settings video, bro.
You
Day
know
one
what? I just
settings
turned
video,
off.
5
Check
minutes.
this out. I turned off active contrast, just dynamic tone mapping, and it's still brighter than the other two TVs.
Yeah.
So it's getting its HDR pop only in HDR standard mode. So it's highly recommended if you guys get a U7K, which I'm recommending for content. You know, we haven't tested gaming, but for regular content, $850, man, look at the brightness. Look at the
It's pretty
specular
impressive, man.
highlights, right? And this is, okay, so on the QM8, it's slightly brighter, the water reflection. The U7K matches the U8H in brightness, right? But you can get the U7K that bright if you go to contrast enhancer. And the QM8 is not calibrated. Once calibrated, who knows? Maybe it'll be less bright. But it's very
All right,
close.
so
Look at the eyes of Batman.
all right, let's do this. We got 218 in the chat. We're gonna do a settings video that FOMO can cut out of this right now.
Right
Go.
now. All right, let's do it right now.
Action.
Let me get into a
Out of the
scene
box.
that
Out of the
has
box.
reflections. Ah, there we go. You got the
It's
brightness on
better
the right.
there.
So this is perfect right here because you'll see the brightness differences, right? I'm going to turn up.
I'd say right now, action, put your settings up and just put what your out of the box settings for day one. What's up, Tony
Day
Zeno? What's up, baby?
out of the box settings for the U7K. This is the best settings for the
U7K.
U7K to match it. You see how it's matched to the U, well, actually, it's slightly brighter than the U8H and the QM8, and the color accuracy isn't off to the point where you're like, oh, I can't do it. Actually, it is very good. And then we'll go to skin tones right after this so you guys can see whether you like the skin tones on this. So picture mode
All
is
right, take one.
standard.
Here we
HDR
are
standard.
with. Here, I'll do the
Everything
intro.
else is
I'll do
off,
the intro.
right? So
Here's the intro.
HDR.
Welcome to the channel.
Okay.
These are the day one settings for the TCL. Oh, I'm sorry. Cut. These
Do
are
it
the day
again.
one settings for the for the Hisense U7K, which you will need to, out of the box, get the best possible picture quality. Introducing Mr. FOMO. Go.
Yes.
Action.
For HDR, this is Batman versus Superman HDR. And you definitely need to put it in HDR standard mode. If you go to Filmmaker, as you can see, Filmmaker is significantly dimmer. And, well, it's just not good. So I have it in standard, but that alone is not good enough. You have to go then also make sure local dimming set on high, but I don't know if it makes a difference because as you can see, off or on, it's all the same. But I'm gonna leave it on. And brightness 100, contrast, these are all default. Dark detail, I haven't touched it. If I turn it on, it doesn't do much, so just leave it off. Active contrast will make it significantly brighter, but you're kind of like darkening the blacks. It'll cause black crushing, so leave that off. This is the ticket, dynamic tone mapping. It makes that flame a little bit brighter, but you can leave it off and get more of that highlight, specular highlight detail. So I'm going to leave it on because actually I like the way they do it with dynamic tone mapping on. And that's it. It's quite simple. The key is HDR standard mode, and you can play with the dynamic tone mapping depending on the movie. But look, it's a match, right? It's
So
great.
what we're looking at here, guys, is the U7K in order to match the U8H and even the QM8. In some ways, even surpass them in some shots. Those are the settings you will need. Temporary day one settings.
Yes.
Please
And I
like
know
and
many of you
subscribe.
asking, oh, what motion, right? Put it in film. The film motion is fine. They did a great job. I don't see obvious soap opera or stutter, But if you're a sensitive soap opera, you could take it to custom and bring it all the way down to 0. But I'm sensitive to Sutter. I'd rather have a touch of soap. So that's something that you guys will have to play with.
We have another super chat from our boy G-Man, Getty G-Man.
All right, let's see what questions he got. Let's see here. Thank you, Getty G-Man. Are you going to do a stream showdown when the UX is released? If yes, what the comparable TV 85? So there is going to be a shootout, right, Brian? At the Value
Yep.
Electronics shootout, we will have the 85-inch UX, we will have the Sony X95L, and of course, we may have the QN95 or 900C, and we'll try to get the QM8. But for sure, I want to see the UX there and the Sony X95L. The UX because it's the first 85-inch with over 5,000 dimming zones, and of course the Sony X95L, everyone who's seen it is saying, wow, what a step up from the amazing X95K. And you're telling me it's even better than the Q95C, which to me is amazing because the 95C I was very impressed, right? It's equivalent to the QM8 as far as hardware specs and performance.
Yeah. I mean, heavyweight division, but I think I'm gonna push for the QN95C to be there over the 900C just because of the AK. But that'll be the shootout to watch, G man. I think we'll be doing that instead of the AK shootout this year, simply because Sony is not a contender for AK this year. There's the shot.
All
The
right.
field.
Oh, this is all the T. Okay,
It
so
looks
the
good, man.
the U7K looks great. If anything, it's
It
actually
does.
better than U8H in terms of processing. And what I want to do, well, we start answering questions. Oh, skin tones. So let me leave it, all the settings as is. If you could take some of the questions, Brian, I'm going to switch to skin tones real quick and we'll see how good it is in
Sure.
skin tones and we can wrap it up.
IB said I got a firmware update from TCL already because of dimming issues and it fixed it. Amazing customer service. So glad to hear that, IB. Danny, I'm coming from a 65-inch 900H, so I'm sure it will be an upgrade. Either way, I believe so. The 900H was good, but I mean it's getting up there in years. Let's see. Terry loves flexing that Z9K as he should. Boy, Tony Zima is in the house. Caleb Dennison is a good dude, everyone.
Oh, is Caleb in the house? Caleb.
No, he's getting a little bit of flack, but he's a good guy. We talk to Caleb off camera a lot. He's a straight shooter. He's not bought by anybody.
Okay, so for you guys to understand, the U8H is calibrated, the U7K is not, and the QM8 is not. So of the three, the U8H is most accurate. I have to say, the U7K is very close to the U8H. I'm pretty impressed. I'm very impressed, actually. The QM8 is slightly oversaturated, just a little bit, probably in the reds, a touch, but it should be, right? It's not calibrated. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts that the U7K is so close to the U8H out of the box?
Well, I would say, the opposite of what we said when we started is I think every year the step down model should equal the flagship from the year before if you're really progressing the right way. So the U7K to match last year's U8H is great progress in some degrees, but I think the U8H was a home run last year. To see the U7K hang in there and actually beat it in some ways shows you that they're on the right path. And then all we need to see now, FOMO, is if the U8K should beat it handily if we're really making progress here. Because if U8K does not beat it up, then we're having a problem. But right now, aside from what I saw in the first 20 minutes, it's a buy. I mean, for the
Yeah.
money, the fact that it's even on the screen with these two, especially the QM8, is a real win. And it'll be interesting, FOMO, to see how the step down models of TCL go against this TV, because
The
this right
Q,
now is the best bang for the buck by far.
and we'll see the Q7 at M-Wave, right?
The
Midwest
U7K.
Experience. The Q7, the TCL Q7, the U7K. So actually, these TVs will be sent over. When I'm done reviewing the U7K and the U8K, Hisense is then gonna, I'm gonna have it calibrated. So Sammy's coming in a few weeks. He's gonna calibrate the U7K. He's gonna calibrate the U8K. He's gonna calibrate the QM8. Then you'll see it apples to apples, full calibration. He's going to comment, how close it gets to perfection. He's going to calibrate the S95C as well. That's my reference TV for this year and probably next. Then after it's calibrated, I'm going to box it, and Hisense is then going to send it to the Midwest AV Experience in Kansas City. Then you'll see how the other TVs compare to it. It'll be calibrated. And here's the best part. When we're done, are you ready, Brian?
Tell me,
Giveaway.
talk to me.
Giveaway.
Ooh.
Someone is, or two people are going to leave with the U7K and the U8K when we're done. Something to think
Oh,
about.
awesome.
So if you're attending, you're going to get a signed TV from Brian and I. It's been calibrated by Sammy Prescott. So you're bringing home a calibrated
Nice.
U7K, U8K when all is said and done at the end of the event. You guys will love it. And
I'm taking that home.
I know, you're just,
I won
I
it.
won. What a shock. I won. What do you think of the skin
Very cool.
tones, huh? Pretty good, huh?
I like it. I mean, I like it. I would tell you that I've actually preferred it in some of these shots.
And again, this is YouTube. My
I
camera
get
is
it.
processed, but it's very close, right? I mean, it looks slightly greener, the U8H. It isn't. It's just, I'm sorry, it's just a
Better
shift
camera.
from my camera sensor. But the U7K does look that good. The skin tones are very good.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is we got these streams going 2 or 3 hours. It's amazing watching your thoughts in the comments change and then our reactions change because we don't have any preconceived notions on what they're going to look like, especially me, until we
Oh,
sit here. That's why the A90J, that's why our S95B is a classic. That live stream was, we were both shocked. But I mean, this is, you're watching us on the fly really kind of enjoy and discover what this TV can do.
those who just joined us, maybe 45 minutes into it, if you rewind it, look at our disappointment. What the hell happened to U7K? We're like, oh
Oh
my
man.
gosh, this is terrible, right? And then we had to
The
play
live
with
stream
the
was only about
settings.
12 minutes long. But all right, shut it down.
We're done. Let's go home. But we were
Yep,
patient,
that's it.
right? We played with it, HDR standard, and then suddenly, now it's a match. It's you got to play with the settings. But yeah, rarely do we get an S95B where out of the box our jaw just dropped, and it continues to drop, by the way. Except G3 with MLA is a good match out of the box. I'll give it that.
But you're looking at when you're talking about G3s in this conversation, and then you look at the price tag. I
Mhm.
mean, really, that's where these all jump over everything is when you add in what things cost. That value proposition really does elevate them.
It does, for sure. And let me see here.
Got the TCL
I
face
can't.
to face.
I need to. Is your? I just realized that you're all pixelated.
I am now. Oh,
I like to match
I
my
think that
size to your size, like my head and everything. All right, I think we're matched now. Okay, everyone. Last call for questions. Any question. It doesn't have to be about the U7K. It could be about the U8K or whatever. Oh, let me take this off so it's not confusing. Yeah, please ask away, my friends. Thank you for being here, and click like if you haven't already. So I'm very excited about the Midwest AV Experience next month in July. Those of you who are there physically, definitely attend. Check it out. Check out the TVs. Talk to us. Have fun. And those of you who can't, we're going to live stream. We're going to have projector comparisons like we did last year, except we're going to have TVs where Brian and I will be playing with the settings, answering questions, having fun, and at the end, giving away this U7K and giving away the U8K that's coming. Both of them will be calibrated by Sammy by the time it gets there. And lastly, we're going to test audio systems. Brian, you'll love this. You're going to get to compare the various audio systems, DTS, Atmos, and because I have a super matrix, I can then compare different Dolby Visions between the TVs because you have the LG there, you'll have the Hisense, and you have the TCL. And so we'll be able to compare various versions of Dolby Vision against the non-Dolby Vision S90C. And you guys can see, oh, wait, is it worth getting Dolby Vision? Well, we're going to test Dolby Vision IQ on
awesome.
the Hisense, which has Dolby Vision IQ as well. So it'll be fun. We're going to try to do a lot of different content for you guys because it's so hard to do comparisons. That's not a shootout where you have calibration and you have these reference
Yeah.
monitors. This is what
Can't
people
change the
say. Oh,
sex. You can't change them at all when you do that.
right. I mean, what is it you're looking forward to seeing when you're there, Brian?
Well, I think it's just us getting our hands on the remote and being able to do what you did with the U7K, which is, okay, this might beat this, but if I just alter this a bit, I can bring them in line. With the shootout, once we calibrate them, I feel like the Z9K in the calibration was very much hurt by losing the processing. I felt if it was able to add some of it back, it would have won maybe. So us being able to on the fly take your comments and do the play by play and maybe alter it as we've done in this stream is really what's going to be fun to see getting. So I guess what our point is to get the best out of these TVs more so than what beats what, right? FOMO. It's more about
Right.
getting them to look the best that they can by using their settings more than stripping. Like we just saw right now, if we had put this whole video in filmmaker mode, the U7K would be hurt. It would not even be something worth you guys buying. By altering the settings for now, it's a must buy.
Yeah.
So not a buy at 7:45 to, at 9 something, it's a must buy. So it shows you the flexibility of image is very important. We'll be doing that on the fly with all the CVs. That's what I'm looking forward to.
And Danny wanted to do a
Of
quick
course, hanging out
segment
with you in person,
too.
of course.
Yeah, of course, hanging out, getting autographs, right? Getting a copy of my gloves. Danny
Absolutely.
wanted a quick settings
Most def.
overview of the QM8. So hey, you know what? We have a bit of time, so I'll run over it with you real quick. And this way, you guys who have the QM8 can see what mode I'm using. So the most accurate mode, so you can see how the faces match and you saw all the brightness, is movie mode. Now you notice they only have really two modes, movie mode or sports. I don't know about IMAX. This is just, it looks like it's kind of hyper contrasty, but you might like it. I like the picture mode. It looks more accurate to me. IMAX looks a bit extreme in terms of contrast. So let me do that again. So real quick, picture mode movie brightness is 100. HDR, always have it at 100. Color saturation, I leave it at default, 50. The brightness settings. Contrast, you can play with that depending on the content, but leave it at 100 to start. Black level 50, dynamic contrast, same thing. If you need it slightly bright in a bright room, you might want to turn it on, but it really does raise the midtones a bit. I leave it off for accuracy because it's so bright, I don't need it on. But in a bright room, you might want it on. Dynamic tone mapping, if it's super duper bright, turning it on might do something, but again, it makes it feel too contrasty, so I leave it off. Local contrast, this is their local dimming zone. Leave it on high for that perfect black bar. And motion, normally for me, so this is kind of cool. This brightness, clear LED motion. It's on or off. I believe this is their BFI. It doesn't drop in brightness that much. So you might want to try turning it on to see if it helps. I have motion clarity on. Reduction blur, I leave it at 6. Judder, I leave it at 0. And so this I have to say the motion on the QM8 is excellent. At judder of 0, normally there's a lot of stutter. On the QM8 there isn't, which means there's probably a touch of processing though, even though it's 0. But the soap opera isn't obvious, right? So that's just something for you guys to consider. And if I wonder if I have the motion on. I don't know if this disc has motion. If it does, that would be great. And you guys can see. But that's it
It's got
for the
the
settings.
cherries going, not the cherries, the peppers going across the screen. It does
Oh
that.
yeah, it does have the motion one. So let's see if motion is 0. Huh. I'll have to go through the other disc, I think. Oh, this is the color smearing. Ooh, wow, the U7K is actually very smooth. I really like the U7K motion, to say.
Oh, is this the
Um,
new test? I mean, it used to be like
but it's not
peppers
0
across the
though. The
screen.
U7K is in film mode. But yeah, this is the new test from Sears and Munsell. And this is the chrominance overshoot that you guys cannot see because it's just way too dark.
Yeah,
Let me,
you'd have to raise it all the way up.
yeah, let's do that. And I don't know if you guys can actually see what I see here. It's going to start moving a little bit soon. It'll start, so you'll see there's, okay, here we go. And it's actually pretty good. Now, it's not in game mode. But if I go into game mode, low latency, let me see if that changes anything. So now, are you affected by these kind of ghosting issues when you're playing, Brian?
I did notice it. I will say if you're gonna go from an OLED back to an
Excellent.
LED, you are gonna see it.
Yeah,
Then you'll
it's
get used
actually
to it.
very good. Yeah,
Yeah.
no
Pixel
complaints here.
response. So high def news, Brian and FOMO, what event are you talking about? We're talking about the M Wave, which will be in
Kansas
Kansas
City. If you
City
type in M Wave
in
Kansas
July.
City, yeah. So let me type it in right now.
The Youth Band and all those guys, you'll see all this there with the whole crew.
There you go. Just Google that, and what the?
Yep, M Wave, cool. Yeah, you'll see us there hanging out. Um,
Mm,
that'll be a blast. God, I look like
all
8-bit
right.
Nintendo. Was that my connection or is that
I don't know what's happening here. I,
oh, oh,
I'm
oh.
still learning how to do this.
I'm at
Oh
1080
wow!
20p. You look, see, you got pixels going. Your
There
pores are
you
showing. I was like, I'm from Sega.
go. Okay, and thank you everyone for dropping by. Brian, I know you're getting ready to go on vacation. So I have to tell everyone, Brian, you set aside your life to come on, say hello, talk to the fans, talk to the folks, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. People
Time,
tune
brother.
in not just for information, but they're tuning in to be entertained. And you're an entertaining guy, I have to say.
Well,
You
thank you.
make reviewing TVs fun. So tell
Oh.
us, what can we expect from you next week, if anything? I know you're on vacation.
So I'm going to the UK tomorrow, but I also will have a premiere of the Sony Z9K against the Samsung QN95C. That'll air tomorrow. I believe it's 6 p.m. That'll be a premiere to see the S95C actually lose the TV battle in some instances. Then I have the QN95C review, and then I also have a why Samsung hate tech therapy video. Those will all be done while I'm away. But I think you guys will appreciate that because I think it's an interesting conversation. But you'll see the comparison tomorrow of the Z9K. And then when I get back, you'll see the X95 go against the X95L, the A80L versus the X95. And I think the X90L at that point should be in.
I love it. Now, this
That's
question I
about it.
think is kind of for you, Brian, because it's gaming specific, but not just gaming. Hey guys, can you help me out? What's the best TV for cloud gaming? I have no budget. I appreciate the help. And my instinct is to say S95C, 77 inch. Samsung is all in on cloud gaming on Tizen, right? It's native cloud gaming. I haven't tested it yet, but it's their thing. But Brian, what would you
Yeah.
recommend if he's gamer cloud gaming? No cost, no object.
Yeah, I mean, the S95C, that's why I'm actually rolling with Samsung over LG this year. Normally, it would be tied with LG, but LG's taking a step back as far as its gaming picture quality. And the S95C just has that many more features, and they have the many different picture presets, ultra wide support, 144 hertz. G-Sync compatibility is not really something that matters anymore since they no longer do the module. So I would definitely say the S95C is the TV to beat. Right now, to me, the two best TVs in the world are the S95C and the S90C, as far as
Mm,
number 1 and number
agree.
2, especially for
Absolutely.
gaming and for the money. They're very, very difficult to beat. I'm only not rolling with them because they're too small. If they were 83 inches, I would have the S95C, no question. So I would say
And
if you know no limit, go for that one.
here's a great super chat by Santi, and this is one
Awesome high
where
def.
I would also recommend the Sony. So from his uncle, X90L or X90K or QM8. So if you're only watching 720p cable, and most of the news and sports is clearly SDR. He doesn't need it super duper bright with HDR, high dynamic range, all that great stuff. The X90L is what I'd go for because you want to go with the latest Sony software slash chip slash processor slash the XR Clear, right? The Sony X90L will make all that look amazing in SDR. That's what Sony is known for. So it is the
Yep.
strength of the Sony. The QM8, the focus is on dimming zones and HDR and all this stuff, which is not what your uncle cares about. So definitely.
Yeah, well, and I'd say, Hisense and TCL have really reached what the others can do, but they kinda rough it, if that makes sense. They lack the elegance of Sony and Samsung, and Sony, when it comes to that upscaling, that's what they really hang their hat on. And I think even their presets, like, say, for instance, my A80J versus my C1, for your uncle, the A80J, I never have to change the preset. It just stays in whatever it's in, and everything looks good, where the C1, every film I watch has to change. So, Sony is very good at that set it and forget it identity. You're just gonna pay top dollar for the A90 or the X90L compared to the QM8. So as long as he's good with that, I think FOMO's right. You'd have to go with the Sony, and especially the clear is gonna be a big difference.
Leo would like to see the star field, and as we all know, this is what separates the best from the rest in terms of local dimming, right, Brian? So let me ask you, what are your predictions on the star field performance
Absolutely.
here?
What's up, Leo? I think that's where you're gonna see I don't know. The local dimming's been good on I think you're gonna see good results, to be honest. I don't think you're gonna see any crush, but,
Let's see.
I'm betting the U7K is gonna be the best of the bunch.
Let me
At
make
first, it's
sure.
all about what stars you see first.
Oh, the U7K. Let me turn up the exposure a bit
Oh, I see
more.
the stars there first.
U7K is killing it.
Yep, I just predicted it before. Everybody knows in the chat. I just said the U7K would win this.
Well, how did you know this, Brian?
I pay attention when it comes to these streams. I watch. I learn with you, my friend.
So the U7K
I mean, it's
decided
got
to
more bloom.
lift the blacks a touch to get you all the stars. You see that? The question is, are you okay with a slight lifting of the blacks to get all the stars there? I'm okay with it. I think it looks great. And remember, I'm hyperexposing, so you see that cloudiness. The cloudiness is barely visible. I have to hyperexpose it so you guys can see that. Let me close the drapes a bit more so you don't see me standing back
Oh,
here.
Scott Coakley just said, I looked up the M Wave and all VIP tickets are sold out. Wow. Are they
Yes,
really?
it's very popular. Very popular.
I'm nervous now. I think I'm going to go. I guess
Yeah, yeah. You're going to be exposed.
I'm not a performer. I'm actually not even a real guy. This is AI. AI,
Let's
come
ask the
on.
fans. You see how deep the blacks are in the U8H? Do you want deep blacks but losing a few stars, but the stars that do come out pop? Or do you want all the stars but see that? It's slightly lifted. And the QM8 is following the
I'd say,
U7, the U8H in that approach.
yeah, I don't know, man. That's a
I
very
mean,
interesting
doesn't that mean
conversation.
the
I think so.
U7K has creator's intent? Every star is a creator's intent. But then the U8H and the QM8 has a creator intent of black space. Which is it?
Yeah, it's always a good question. But I always find it interesting. When do you see the stars? Well, for Terry knows this with the first mini LED, which I think was the Hisense. You couldn't see the stars for like a half an hour.
Yeah, like one
Like it
star.
didn't show up. Was it Terry? Was that the Hisense or was that a TCL? I always forget the 8 series. Was the 8 series the Hisense or TCL? TCL. No,
TCL,
no,
yeah,
no.
it was the first mini LED TV. So here's a great
But do you
question: how is
remember
the
that the stars
blooming
just
on the
wouldn't come out?
QM8? Yes, I remember because it was crushing everything, but it was better a year later after many firmware updates. How is the blooming on the
Oh yeah.
QM8 in game mode? I don't know. I haven't tested any games where there's a blooming issue in game mode yet, and it's also, is there VRR? Is it? This is such a, I will look at it, but normally I don't see blooming anyway because in game mode, most of these TVs, they shut off local dimming a lot. So you're never going to have blooming. What you have is lifted blacks. And you don't have that contrast anymore. You don't have the HDR pop. So it's not so much blooming that's an issue, but rather it's not, the dynamic range isn't as good, right? The HDR pop is not as good as OLED. And this is why people go to OLED, is that in game mode, especially in 4K 120 and VRR, you shut off the local dimming. They just cannot move all those dimming zones with the LCD pixel and the mini LEDs. So that's what happens. But
Well, it's
so
funny. It's
I think,
actually Leo was
yeah.
talking about Starfield, the video game.
Ah, well, you know
Is
what?
Starfield even out yet? I don't think Starfield's even out, is it?
I want the Starfield video game. I just don't have time to play those things because
None of
it's
us
a
do.
time suck, isn't it?
That's what you.
I
But
mean,
that's
it's
what
like,
these guys don't understand is that everyone's like, when you get in your TV, I'm like, who the hell's gonna use it? I'm gonna sit there. The cat's gonna watch it.
all
That's the
right.
hardest part about being a content creator. I think FOMO can agree. We don't watch any content, or we don't watch very
Nope,
little content
we
these
do not.
days.
Okay. I know. I took Leo literally. I want Starfield. Oh, okay. Here's the Starfield. He goes, no, I meant the awesome video game that's coming out. Like, he's like, I don't want to stare at those stars. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up. I have to go pick up dinner for my daughter. Hopefully, she's not lying on the ground starving. And thank you, Brian, again for coming. Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure.
Last recommendation is definitely the U7K is a buy. It is definitely good. But you guys saw the
Must
settings,
buy.
right?
Definitely a
We'll
must
have to
buy.
pull that out, right, and do the settings. But it's great. It's at $850. Your other alternative is the Sony X85L if you want just SDR watching. Obviously, it'll have great processing, but if you want HDR pop, it matches the U8H. I mean, I didn't think I'd be able to say that. I'm actually frankly surprised in real movies like the Batman vs. Superman you guys saw, Pan.
It did better. It
It's
did
the
better.
bright. It did better in Batman vs. Superman. In Pan, you know, that specular highlight detail a little bit was lost, but the brightness is there. So bravo, good job. I see the progress. The processing is better, but not perfect. But for $850, you know, nothing is
Can't
perfect,
beat
right?
it. You really can't beat it.
U8K, U8K in 2 weeks, and you know we'll see how it goes. So thanks again, everyone, and thank you, Brian, and thank you for
My
everyone for
pleasure.
showing up, and thank you for all the super chats. And until next time, everyone, stop the FOMO.